Good evening. It is May 20th, 2020. Oh gosh, I'm starting off on a bad note. 2021, and we are here for the regular school board meeting of the Newmarket School Board. We'll begin this meeting, as we do all others, with the Pledge of Allegiance. Finn, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much, Ben, for allowing me to put you on the spot like that. The next thing is we will open the meeting for public comment. If anyone would like to come to the mic for public comment. Seeing nothing happening, we'll proceed with the agenda as written. The first thing is the student representative report. Taylor, would you like to do that?
Yes, it's nice to see you all again. And,
welcome back.
Thank you. So I wanted to start off with this past entire month, there's been a lot of AP testing going on, and that will finish in the next coming week. And then I wanted to also start off with some senior events that's going to be going on. Seniors get out June 4th, and we'll enjoy senior week after that with fun events like prom on the 9th of June and graduation on the 11th. And May 23rd, there will be an informational Zoom meeting held for seniors to ask any questions about these upcoming events. Top 10 seniors are going to have a luncheon on May 27th at the Old Ferry Landing in Portsmouth. And yesterday, Student Council held a ice cream social for the seniors outside, socially distanced. Newmarket Cares Day was last Friday, and I believe this was the 3rd annual Newmarket Cares Day, and that's where kids from the junior and senior high help clean up yards and do other outdoor community service activities. The National Honor Society had their induction May 3rd and held elections for new officers this Monday. For sports, girls varsity softball has had an away game today at 4:30 versus Sanborn Regional High School, and boys varsity baseball also had a home game today versus Pittsfield, actually, which started at 4:30 as well. Varsity track has a meet today at Dover at 4 p.m. I sadly haven't been able to get a hold of the girls and boys varsity lacrosse team schedule, but to those I've talked to, they've had a lot of fun playing lacrosse this year and had such a great time playing with Oyster River. So that's pretty cool that we got to start our lacrosse team this year. And that's it.
Thank you very much. We will move on to committee reports. Gary, would you like to give us some feedback on the Building Grounds Task Force that you're on?
Yep. So we've met a few times. We've reviewed the draft level of estimated effort for cleaning the buildings that this district created and then submitted out to a third party for evaluation, and went over their findings. We had some preliminary discussions about the benefits and the pros and cons of outsourcing versus in-house sourcing the work. And next Friday, I believe, we should be having another meeting to receive costs on some of the various possible breakdowns for staffing.
Great. Thank you very much. We're going to skip the SST report at this point, and Susan will go into your superintendent's report.
You want me to do the budget committee?
Oh, I forgot about the budget committee. Gary, thank you very much.
That's all right. So we'll be meeting on the 24th, and we will reviewing the school finances for Q3 as well as the audit for last year.
Perfect. Thank you. Now, Susan, I think it's to you.
Before my superintendent's report, I think you did come to make a comment during the public comment section of the budget on an agenda item. I believe that's why you're here this evening, but I could be wrong. Did you want to speak? No, my email said that you could speak during the public comments, just not on the agenda item. So you're welcome to come. I thought when I read this, I'm like, oh, must have been a misunderstanding. So you're welcome, if you'd like to.
And please introduce yourself so the world knows who you guys are.
I hope my hair's okay. Okay, I'm June Williamson. I teach 4th grade at the elementary school with Cassandra. Cassandra Rodier. Yes, been there. We've been there for a very long time. combined 70-plus years.
Awesome.
And it was 3 years ago, we, with the help of Mr. Pine and at the time Superintendent Nato, put a proposal together for a fairly unique timeshare model. Cassandra and I both have done 50-50 timeshares. I have 8 years of that experience.
I've had three.
And and we both have taught with each other in the 4th grade for at least 25 years, I believe. So we feel like we are pretty knowledgeable in terms of the curriculum. And I think, as far as school board, I think, Elizabeth, you were there for the initial, and Kim. And so this is going to be the end of our 2nd year. And so we, are here. We know that it's timeshares, according to board policy, are on a year-to-year basis. And so we're here, and so, to ask for your support.
Right, and we're not a 50-50 for the new members here. I officially retired in June of 2019, but really didn't want to leave. June was thinking of cutting back a little, so we wrote the proposal to the then school board to do a 25-75 split. And as you can see from the parent polling that we've done over the past 2 years, we've gotten very good reviews from parents. And we feel like the children are being looked at by 2 sets of very experienced eyes. And and we work very well together, and especially during this past year and a half, which has been difficult for everyone, we feel like we've put in probably more than our
25-75.
but
Like everyone, actually.
and we've gotten wonderful evaluations both years from our supervisors, and so we've already gotten our contract for next year, so this is sort of mute for this, but we just wanted to ask for your continuing support going forward, since it has been such a successful model for us and for the students. They've never had to have a substitute, which is a big plus right there.
Right there, yeah.
So thank you for your consideration.
And if you have any questions for us, feel free to reach out.
I know that in the packet there is a support letter from Mr. Pine supporting this, and I'm wondering if the board would indulge me and allow us to vote on this now while we have the 2 individuals in front of us who already have their contracts. Would that be all right?
Yes.
I seek a motion to approve the job share for the fiscal year 2022 school year.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Ms. McKinney and a second from Mr. Swanson, supported by Sean Pine, and thank you for these letters of support from the kids and the parents and everything. That's great to see. We'll move to the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? It is approved.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you guys for coming, and thank you and the team at NES for all, those of you that are here too, for all that you guys have done this year. We appreciate it very much. Very, very much. All right. Susan, I think we were up to you.
Okay. I just didn't want my staff to have to feel like they had to sit here through the whole, right, because it's a long agenda. Okay, so just a few updates, and, I like that Taylor goes before me, so if she talks about something, I take it off my list of things to give a shout out to. So, as you all know, this is probably the busiest time of year for all of us. People say frequently, oh, your school year is winding down, and I think, no, it crescendos. Because not only are we trying to wrap up so many things at the end of a year, but we're also trying to plan for summer and the opening of school. So it's incredibly busy. So, we've done a lot. You see the agenda's full. We're actively involved in hiring for open positions. And we have a goal to have all the professional staff positions filled in June. hopefully before we leave for the summer break. There's testing that has been going on at the elementary, middle, and actually high school, state testing, which takes up a lot of our time in terms of being able to coordinate all of that. And so that's something that's unique to this time of year as well. We're working on scheduling in both schools for the upcoming school year, identifying at the elementary school placements, and teachers at the elementary school are writing profiles for kiddos so that the teachers who are receiving them have some information about the students that they're receiving. And of course, at the high school, there's a draft of the master schedule, and they're actively meeting with kids to resolve conflicts and talk to them about what their options are. I thought it would be interesting to you all to know that we are offering more courses at the high school. It was a goal of ours. 2 years ago we added staff, and we've taken and reassigned staff to different things. For those of you who were here, know that at the high school we only had one section of music offered to students. We had a lot of offerings at the elementary school and at the middle school, and it was a program built to nowhere. So we added some, performing arts staff last year. In addition to that, we expanded in some of our core areas. As a result of that, we've been able to offer more electives and some core courses. So here's some exciting news. For the second year, we'll be running The Art of Stained Glass. Next year, for the first time, we're going to be offering Current Trends in Business, Entrepreneurship, Science Fiction and Fantasy, Advanced Placement Statistics for the first time, American Pop Music, Music Production, Piano and Guitar Lab, Yoga and Mindfulness, very popular. We have 3 sections of those that will be running next year. We're also going to be adding AP Environmental Science, so that's 2 new AP courses that we'll be adding. Astronomy will run for the first time, gives others an option for science that's not been offered previously. We'll be offering and running CAD. We will also be running a 3D solid modeling. This will be the second year that we will be offering street law. The second year for criminology and forensics, which is a co-taught class between science and social studies. And Quest for Equity will run again this year. So I thought that as we're honing in on the final schedules, certainly kids will walk out knowing what they're taking next year, and staff will know what they're teaching. So I wanted to share that news with you. For me, this is very exciting, to be able to offer a full complement of courses in all disciplines for our kiddos in the upcoming year.
I
So
want to take some of those classes.
I know, where do I sign up?
I want to
Yeah.
take some of those classes.
Can I ask that for not next year, obviously, but the year after that, we look at like an academic environmental science as well, or even a CP level, just because not all kids want to do biology, and I love the fact that environmental science will be offered. I think that would be just a great thing for kids who just aren't science-minded, but are science-minded.
Right.
Does that make sense? Like, you don't want to take biology.
Right,
Not
right,
everybody's a bio guy.
right. So offering some additional
I love it.
courses in science is nice. I mean, we added a science teacher in the current year. And a few of these were queued up to run, but then we had to modify all of our schedules,
Right.
and because of COVID, some didn't run. But we also didn't have the staff to be able to offer. We didn't have people with the credentials to run some of these courses. And so, this is really a testament to the work that was done with students in the prior year, identifying areas of interest, looking at gaps in our program of study, trying to provide kids with opportunities to have, high-quality, engaging learning experiences here, to start to introduce at our high school co-taught classes, which helps students think more deeply and through different lenses about different topics. So we're really, really excited to be able to see some of our hard work, translate into exciting opportunities for our kids. So,
I'm sorry.
yeah.
Do you know how many classes a typical teacher will have? Like, will it be semester? Or?
A typical schedule is that teachers teach 5. There's three blocks in a day, and they have 1 block for planning. So 5 or 6, some might teach more. This year it's a 4 by 4, and that's only because of the way that we had to design the schedule because of COVID.
But with like the different subjects, like would a typical teacher be like doing street law, political science, and economics, like 3 different types of subjects, do you know?
Oh, how many subjects?
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's my fault.
Okay, all right. Different teachers have different courses that they're teaching. Okay. So some will teach multiple sections of the same course, and then others, especially when you get into electives, Andrew,
yeah,
then they could be teaching multiples.
Okay.
So in this case, I'll give an example. I don't think we're running AP Bio next year because we're trying to, as you see in most high schools, that you offer every other year. Certain AP classes so that kids have the opportunity to take all of them, and you have enough students sign up that it makes it viable to run. So next year we're introducing a couple of these courses so that we can expand the offerings in that way. But our AP Bio teacher also teaches bio, but is going to teach next year astronomy. So.
I just know in a small school it's difficult to offer so many classes, which is awesome.
Yes, and it all depends, especially in a small school. Yeah. It depends on how much experience the staff that you're hiring has, and what they're able to successfily provide in terms of programming for kids. So. We added 2 science teachers last year. One was a chemistry teacher. Our chemistry teacher is certified in 3 areas. So she's offered to offer the AP just lost my.
No.
I know. Earth science, but it's not.
Yeah.
Environmental.
It's gone. But she's environmental science.
Thank you.
So she's certified, she's taught it before, and she was willing to offer it. I have observed her several times this year. She is an awesome teacher. Good stuff going on in her class. So it's nice that we're starting to be able to offer different options for kids that and not have to pigeonhole them and just very limited.
And is there a curriculum that's being created by a teacher that if that class has to be passed off to another teacher that they can give it to them?
So one of the things Assistant Superintendent Black has done is provided our staff at every level with templates for every course. Then they can go through, they can review, they can do modifications, but we have given them an outline in UBD format that has stage 1, 2, and 3. Obviously, teachers, will want to create their own learning activities for kids, but we're giving them something to start with. So they're not starting from scratch. They're aligned to standards and competencies. So it gives them, a huge leg up from what we've had in the past. Yep. Anything more to add? They covered it? Okay. Okay, so that's exciting. In addition, of course, a lot of work in the last, all year, I would say, we have been trying to look at, at student learning and to identify where there might be gaps and try to make modifications in order to support kids where they have gaps. As you know, we presented a couple of, maybe a month or so ago, a learning loss plan. And we will be offering summer school for competency recovery and or course recovery at the high school level. And so we are really actively looking at how students are performing at this time and trying to put together programming to support the recovery of whatever learning they are lacking. And so that is taking a lot of time because, what we're doing now is not what we would, necessarily historically have done. So we're kind of, again, continuing to build the plane as we're flying it. State reporting is another huge time draw on the administration. I can't tell you, I have a stack that's approaching an inch thick over the last month of the demands from the state for different things that they want us to report to. It's one thing if they tell us in advance so that we're collecting data in that way, and then it's a matter of pushing a button, but it's not being done in that fashion. So, I know that my entire SAU staff has been devoting hours and hours and hours just on one report that was completely not on our radar. And this is not an issue for just us. It's an issue for other school districts as well. But it's also indicative of the experience we have had the entire year. So the demands for us to provide data has exponentially grown. So we're spending a lot of time on that. Of course, planning for both graduation and moving up ceremonies. We're going to try to do something for the kiddos coming from the elementary up to the middle school, and then from 8th grade up to the 9th grade. We weren't able to do anything last year. We're trying to do something just to give them that kind of that experience of accomplishment, knowing that they've made it to kind of the next benchmark in their educational journey. And, of course, we all see the regulations for everything related to COVID changing one way or another, and we spent a lot of time, I'm going to speak to a little that in a minute, on some of the changes, especially around masking and what does it mean and who's saying what, and what's going to happen here. I'll talk about that in a minute. So, and then the other thing that I was informed is that we have to write a reopening plan for next year. I asked the commissioner, well, we're already open, so what on earth does a reopening plan look like for a school that's been open all year? And he explained that it's a requirement that they're requesting all school districts to just kind of document what their expectations are for next year. For us, we've said all along we're going to open next year using on-campus learning. We're not going to be offering remote learning next year unless something happens and the whole world has to pivot again. But I mean, that's not what we're planning for. We're planning for us to open. Of course, we have to all understand and acknowledge that we still have COVID. It's the numbers are improving, but it's still here, and kids that are under 12 are not going to have access to vaccines. They're telling us until the fall. And so that means for us that we're going to have to continue to follow certain protocols. Universal protocols are going to be recommended. So the state did give us a little preview on what that would look like. CDC has not provided any guidance yet. They said that within the next month that they would give us some kind of, some advice on that. But we are going to have to whip up a summary of basically what I'm saying tonight. I'll have a town hall meeting again. I'll bring it forward to the board, and we'll have conversation about that. Probably, hopefully, maybe at the next meeting or the last meeting. So, it's just again another requirement that if we had a little lead time, it would be really appreciated because we're not, we're all really in the thick of it. So, just wanted to give you a heads up that will be coming forward in the near future. I wanted to highlight a few events and traditions, here in Newmarket that we're going to be able to at least, if not do in a traditional way, we're going to be able to at least do something to honor some of our traditions. So Field Day is a big tradition at the elementary school, and it's not going to be your traditional, field day, but we are going to offer a field day. We're anticipating that will be on the 11th, Friday the 11th. If it's a rain day or the weather's not cooperating with us for any reason, then we would move that to Monday. The 4th grade is doing their wax museum. That's something that has been another tradition here. So I'm really excited. I've not been able to, witness that personally because last year we weren't able to do that because there were no kids here at all last year. So I'm excited to let you know that on the 21st, which is tomorrow, they're going to be doing the wax museum. The alphabet countdown, so the 26 days before the end of school, the primary grades are participating in this alphabet countdown. So Generally speaking, the 26th day, the first day, is A, and it's all things related to A, and the second day it's B, and all things related to B. So they do different themes based on the alphabet countdown. The 5th grade moving up ceremony or graduate, whatever you want to call it, they're not graduating, they're just moving up ceremony. We're thinking maybe would be the 16th or the 17th. It's not going to be all parents come, just like anything else, but we're going to do something for the kids, on the 16th or 17th. And then the Girls on the Run program has been running also at the elementary school. So, cool things. It takes a lot of time and energy to do every one of these because we can't do it in the traditional fashion, but we want to give kids the best experience we can as they exit the year. At the junior senior high school, there'll be a Memorial Day remembrance that the middle school is planning, a pride picnic on May the 28th. Newmarket Cares volunteers will be on the last day. We are going to have a drama production. They have been practicing behind closed doors, socially distanced with masks on for months and months and months. I peek in every now and then to see, but that one will be virtual because there's no way to get an audience in there. But they've been working all winter long to pull this together. I'm looking forward to seeing that. For band and chorus, we are going to have a live concert. We're not going to invite the entire public, but we're going to have parents come, and we're going to have the concert outside. So again, we're planning protocols for that, and a lot of planning going on around that. Sports, we talked a lot about sports, and we were able to provide our athletes, with programming all year long, at the varsity level. But there was a lot of programming that students that have other interests that we weren't really able to do a whole lot with, especially in the fall. So to be able to allow our arts students, to be able to perform for us and showcase all that they have put into this year is really means a lot to us and a lot to those kids who don't have a hook in other ways. Not everyone's an athlete. Not everyone is, is interested in, AP classes and things. There are kids out there that are very bright and very talented, and it's wonderful to be able to give them an opportunity to perform and share that with you. So, spring sports, of course, we have Net Zero, which is a club that is an environmental club, and they're designing gardens for the front of the high school, and they're going to come to the board at the next meeting and do a presentation to you on what they've been working on there. The senior ice cream social is, did you mention it?
Oh, I thought it was yesterday.
It was yesterday, okay. I knew it got postponed, and I put it on my list earlier, okay. So we were able to do the ice cream social 3 times the charm. And NHS, so that's National Honor Society, we had the induction 2 weeks ago for that. The top 10 luncheon is Thursday the 27th, and Kim and I will be there with the kids along with Principal Dalton and Ms. Bison. And we are going to something, Ferry Landing?
Yeah, the old
It used to be a surprise.
Ferry Landing.
So just, in the future, it's always a surprise. Kids don't know where they're going.
Well,
Oh, it was announced in an email.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
yeah.
But
So,
it's because they have to drive themselves, right?
oh, no,
You're taking a
I
bus?
think we're taking a bus, I believe.
Yeah, it just said public transportation will be provided.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So, no, again, it's not exactly what the tradition is, but it is, and they will be here, so the top 10 we've invited to
June 3rd.
next board meeting. And we'll give you a little summary of where they're going and, some of the wonderful things that they've done to be great members of our learning community. So that is, let's see, those are the events. I just want to talk briefly about, actually, I want to give a shout out to Erica. For the second year, we have received some really positive feedback about our student support services. They evaluate, the percentage of children who are evaluated within 60 days of a parental consent to evaluate. I'm not sure why they specifically look at this measure every year, but they do here. Wasn't true in my prior state, but they do here. And and it must be because people don't typically have 100% compliance, but we do. So I wanted to give a shout out to Erica and her staff for a job well done there. And then last but not least, I did want to speak briefly about mask ordinances and mask requirements and all of that, because it's confusing, though some people think it's not. And it can be confusing because you get different agencies that are saying different things. And so what we know is that, for example, CDC recently changed their guidance, stating that anyone that was vaccinated did not have to mask in most situations. There are still circumstances in which they have to mask. But what kind of fell off the radar is what CDC says about masking in schools. So I thought it might be important to just share with you what CDC, which is who we are following in terms of our protocols. So when asked, what about masks in schools? As of now, the CDC school guidance remains unchanged. Most students will still be unvaccinated, and schools should follow CDC guidance for schools, which is to follow all of the protocols that we have in place now. They go on and they talk about, mitigation strategies. They're multi-layered, and the two most critical mitigation measures are universal masking, and making sure that your mask fit properly, and physical distancing. So that still remains the top two mitigation strategies. I will say that in New Hampshire, which is interesting, and I understand why they did this, is that of course vaccinating is the most highly rated way to mitigate contracting, transmitting, and or getting very sick from the virus. CDC also says, with regards to fully vaccinated, when they release their guidelines, that people could resume pre-pandemic activities without wearing a mask or social distancing, except where required by federal, state, local, tribal, local laws, regulations, etc. The guidance has raised questions for schools about how to proceed in the current school year. CDC recommends schools continue to use the COVID-19 prevention strategies outlined in the current version of the CDC's operational strategies for K-12 schools, which is what we do now, for at least the remainder of the 2021 school year. They also said that CDC will provide an update to its guidance for schools in the upcoming weeks. So we should have something new on that. So then I'm sure, we've heard, things have, maybe people are tapping into what's going on in the state. So what is the state recommending? I'm not talking about NHIAA, I'm talking about our state health department. And so this is Dr. Chan and his team. I was on a meeting with them yesterday, and I asked a lot of questions because I want to understand, because it's confusing to me. I hear things and I have to research them. I just don't take something that I hear and, I want to go back and validate it and know what the source is and understand it, so I understand the full context of it. So I'm going to read to you what they've said. They have 12 mitigation measures, and I'm just going to remind the public what they are. So planning and communication. Obviously, you have to plan for what your mitigation strategies are going to be, and you want to communicate that broadly to people, which we've done. Second is, and this is not necessarily in order, but vaccination against COVID-19 is the second one they list. Identifying and excluding people with COVID-19 symptoms or any risk factors related to exposure. So you still have to screen, you still have to have people tested. None of that's gone away. Social distancing or physical distancing, wearing face masks, Cohorting and limiting the group size, that still remains the recommendation at the state level. Modifying layouts and processes, so that's modifying layouts, putting your barriers in and things like that. Hand hygiene, cleaning and disinfecting, and avoiding shared objects. That's been another one. People say, can we use the playground? Those are shared spaces where respiratory droplets can, be, left on a hard surface. Students are running around. So they're still suggesting that you do not share objects to the greatest extent feasible and possible. Improve ventilation, which we're in good shape there, and that we're still required to contact trace, isolate, and quarantine. Here's what they say with regards to masking. New Hampshire Department of Health Services continues to recommend face masks be used whenever possible in public locations and other people are around, especially in indoor environments. Not exclusively, but especially. So they're still recommending masks in school environments, and this is specifically for schools. They had an FAQ, are masks required for sports? And this is old, this is current. Sporting events are considered high-risk activities for both spectators, students, and spectators, staff, and athletes. We continue to recommend physical distancing and face mask use whenever possible in sports, but this may not always be possible or desirable in some situations. So they're still recommending that we use masks. And then they have little graphics to show, when to consider, masks. So, we don't have a fully vaccinated population here. Students, I don't know how many students have been vaccinated. I know that we have a vaccination clinic on Saturday, and right now we only had 160 pre-register. So when I first threw it out to parents, there was 260, but only 160 signed up. I know that some students that were 16 and older went independently prior to us offering the clinic and did get vaccinated. I don't know who they are. We don't have any documentation on that. We do know that all students, even if they're vaccinated in our clinic, will not be fully vaccinated before the end of the year. So our circumstances really haven't changed. I did ask the state, Dr. Chan, yesterday specifically about the sports, and I said, I don't read anything, I can't find anything that says your recommendations around sports has changed with regard to masking. And they responded and they said, no, nothing has changed with regard to our recommendations regarding masking. So I just wanted to share all of that because, people are saying, let's take all our masks off and all of that. And I think, in fact, our town voted last night on a shift in their mask ordinance. And so people might be reading that as well. And that doesn't apply in our school setting. Their ordinance applies to town-owned, related facilities, not school. And they said as such last night when they were talking at their counselor meeting last night. I talked to Steve today about that. I met with the director of public health here for the town. Had a long conversation with him about masking and when you can't, and when you can, and barriers and all of the mitigation strategies. So I would make sure that I understood, what is considered, as he said, theatrics versus what are really kind of tried and true and known strategies that prevent the transmission of the virus. So anyways, I've done a lot of research on that, and that's what I've learned. If something changes, I will certainly bring it to your attention. But that is what the current guidance for schools are as of yesterday. Any questions regarding that? I mean, it's a lot, and I'm sorry to have taken up a chunk of time, but I'm sure you're getting calls about this stuff, and I know I am, and I wanted to make sure that you understood what the recommendations were so that you can feel comfortable responding.
Well, there's 19 days left of school.
Yes.
19 days. And even if it did change, we have contracts and we have we have agreements with the paras and the teacher union, so we would have to meet yet again. And by the time we figure out all our schedules, we have these meetings, come down to decisions, we've probably lost all that time. And I want people to understand, it's not because, it's just the way it is. This is a time crunch. We have 19 days. If we could just push it to 19 days, keep everyone safe, maybe we will be able to come back in the fall. We just don't know. I just want people to understand, it's so many moving parts to this still.
There are, and we'll get further guidance. Right now, based on the conversation with Dr. Chan, Dr. Talbert, that we should anticipate having to wear masks when we come into school next year, because we are not going to have our younger students vaccinated. So it doesn't mean forever, but we're going to plan on those protocols, and they've kind of outlined most of the protocols we're using right now will remain, but there are some that will change, based on what we know. The social distancing thing is a little different. We already changed our protocol in terms of how kids will come in. People asked yesterday about the protocol of limiting access to our buildings. They said, yes, that is something you will want to continue next year. Again, things may change, but this is what they're, kind of their crystal ball right now. And so I'll take all this information and what we're doing now, and I'll summarize it, and then we'll talk, I'll have a parent meeting and all of that, and we'll make sure that we're all clear about, based on what we know right now, this is what we're planning for, so that, I know I've been saying this and saying this and saying this, but that doesn't mean people hear that or they absorb it. So I think putting it in writing, putting it up on the website so people can access it, especially over the summer, is probably prudent.
Should we put the CDC and Dr. Chan's report in the minutes as well, just so that people could see it?
Yeah, I'm happy. I'll give you the slides. So let me just peek here. Vaccination clinic, masking, master scheduling, special education. Oh, before school program, I know that it was brought to my attention that some parents were struggling because we weren't offering, not that we, but LinkedIn, I guess, had a before school program, and when we weren't able to do LinkedIn, that it caused parents, some real difficulties and challenges. So when I learned that was problematic for parents, because nobody had reached out to me prior to inform me of that, I did meet with Amy, who is the director of our recreation department, and she is offering a before school program for any parents that need and what we're doing is we're having the bus come and pick up the kids from the rec department and then bring them to school. So we've got a little loop going there. So there is a before school program, and we'll work with Amy to make sure that's available to parents next year as well, especially if by the sounds of it, that protocol will be recommended for everybody in schools for the upcoming year.
I don't know if this is the appropriate time to thank you so much for that morning care. I know it's helped out a lot of people. I do know it stretched the park very really thin coverage. And the other issue too is like it opened at 7, and there's a sizable number of parents that still need it at 6:30, and the park and rec just can't offer that. And there's my next year too, when things quote unquote go back to normal, I think that large number of students that were in Link Together are going to be demanding before and after school care at a higher number than perhaps what the Park and Rec has now. I just don't know if the Park and Rec can handle that number of kids. So now is probably not the time to have the conversation about it, but I think there is a concern for next year.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I know that nothing's ideal.
Yeah.
We didn't have a lot of ramp-up time, as you know.
Oh,
We
yeah.
were told that we had 2 weeks to figure out a 5-day-a-week schedule. And, and so with such limited time, it's hard to get all of the staff that you would otherwise do if you had the ramp-up time. So we will continue to, do our very best to try to provide our parents with as many options as we can, knowing that, that's, we have limitations.
Oh, yeah.
Our focus is, on certainly the educational programming for kids, but I do believe in partnering with your other
Yeah.
town departments to try to meet the needs of the broader community and parents, so.
And
so
I know the
we'll
parents
work.
are taking advantage of the morning care, are very appreciative, so
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, and so we'll continue to, but, if the rec department wasn't able to hire anybody, because we only had 5 days to turn it around, then there, you have limitations inherent with that, but it, and, again, next year is, I think that Amy and perhaps, Ray Cooper can see if there's a way to collaborate.
Yeah.
I've suggested that, and I'm happy to meet with them, not that I have
Yeah.
anything to do with it, but whatever I can do to facilitate it will be great, but school space is
Yeah.
problematic. I mean, there were a lot of challenges, my understanding is, with the LinkedIn program competing for space that we needed.
Mm-hmm.
And next year, the space that they were using, we need it next year for a classroom, so it's not as simple as
Oh, yeah.
perhaps people realize, but, we're doing as much as we can. We're doing as much as we can, we will continue to do so.
Yeah, and I appreciate all the work you put with it. I know people are appreciative.
Yep.
So.
So that, I know it was a lot, but there was a lot that's been happening. So,
Well, thank you for that thorough update, and Deb, if you would like to proceed with your presentation about elementary school and middle school performance data.
Great, thank you. As many of you are aware, and some of you who are new, I'll just share with you that a couple of months ago, I offered a presentation on some of our data at our high school. And at that time, I mentioned that I would come back at a later date and we'd talk about the middle and elementary school data, as it exists currently. So that's why we're here tonight. We're going to look at some of our academic assessment data for the elementary and middle school level. Last time I talked as well about this, and when we look at assessment, in large part, we're looking at formative and summative types of assessment. And then my favorite analogy is that, when you're cooking something in your kitchen and you're tasting it and you continually adjust it so that it's just the way that you want it. But once you serve it to people, it's done. That's the end game. And so formative is kind of the soup while it's being cooked, and then our summative assessments are, that's what we've served up. That's what we end up with in the end. This is a slide you've seen before, but I wanted to share it again in this context. Just as it relates to the reality that we use a lot of different types of assessments. Interim assessments are assessments that occur in the middle. We'll give those in the middle of a unit, in the middle of a year, but we use a variety of different types of assessment tools. Some of them, again, are formative and they inform what we're doing instructionally. Others give us benchmarks about how kids are doing mid-year, and some of those are summative and just kind of are the post-mortem. So just to kind of give you a brief history of where we've been in our state, some of you may recall back years ago in 2005 to 2014-15 school years, before we began using the National Common Core Standards or the College Career Readiness Standards in New Hampshire, we had a New Hampshire set of standards that was unique to our state, and at that time we assessed our students using NECAP. I share this with you because the data that I'm going to share with you is going to start at the 2015-16 school year, because it's not particularly relevant because they're different standards. And in addition to that, there is some change because when we initially adopted the College Career Readiness Standards, our state utilized what was called the Smarter Balanced Assessment, or SBAC. That was the original assessment that we used. In 2017-18 school year, the state shifted over to the SAS assessment, the statewide assessment system, which is the one that we're currently using right now. Also relevant to know is that last year, which is the 2019-20 school year, there was no SAS data because it was not administered. So that's just a little bit of background as we move forward. So Again, the current test that we're taking replaced the Smarter Balanced. It is aligned to the college and career readiness standards. It's the assessment that students are taking currently right now. They're taking it in math, English language arts, and they're also taking it in science. It's administered grades 3 to 8 in ELA and math, and then students take the science SAS in grades 5, 8, and 11. It's really designed to be a tool to determine whether kids are on track for college and career readiness. But it also can be used to inform instruction in the classroom. Teachers do get data reports. We did in the fall, if you recall, the state required us to administer the interim, one of the interim assessments to students so that we could get some benchmark information on what types of learning loss may have occurred over the course of the shifts in the spring and any loss that may have occurred over the summer, and we did administer that. But that did not give us summative data, so we won't be looking at that fall interim data as part of this. So the first data slide that I'm going to share with you is our aggregate comparison, keeping in mind this is all of our students combined. If we tried to take a dive into this by grade level, it would take us a great deal of time. And so what I'm sharing with you currently right here is the last SAS data that we had. So this was in the 2019 school year. And this gives you the comparisons of how our students are performed compared to the rest of the state and in the area of mathematics. And these are all like district comparisons. So you can see, in general, some of our neighbors. This is where we perform in math comparatively. This next slide is actually trends over time. So, for example, the very top slide, the top left box there is our current grade 11 students. And this is all of the state assessment data, the SAS data that we have for that cohort. So that gives you their proficiency levels in the 2015-16 years when they were 6th graders. It gives you 7th graders as 7th graders and then as 8th graders. Again, keeping in mind that they didn't take it in 9th grade. So that's each cohort. Now, when we look at this, I think it's fair to make an assumption that we do see decreasing proficiency in our cohorts over time for math. There are some exceptions to that. I can't explain why in grade 10 they had a spike of 74% and then took another dip. It's hard to be able to, analyze and understand that data, especially given that I wasn't here, not sure what was happening instructionally. I don't know if there was. We also have the law of small numbers. We have small numbers of students. A handful of kids can really impact this data quite a lot. So that's why we always want to look at trends over time, and generally we want to look at 4 to 6 years of data before we can make any assumptions about things. But we do see that there is some indicators of decreased proficiency over time in the grades. This is our aggregate comparison for 2019 for ELA. And you'll see here that ELA is an area where we're performing better in our English language arts. And these are using the same comparative groups, our same neighbors in the state. So if we take a similar look at that same data and we look at our patterns over time, there's no trend here. There's nothing that you would look at and say, oh gosh, this jumps out at me. Overall, we seem to be fairly consistent and be remaining, in general terms. We do see some nice growth in grade 7, but I think we always do expect to see, by the way, a dip when kids move from grade 5 to 6. It happens everywhere. That is consistently one of the things that happens. It's a transition year. It's a big year for kids. They're moving to a new school. They're oftentimes adjusting from being in a self-contained classroom to now having multiple teachers and trying to balance multiple subjects, and that can be overwhelming for children. So that's something we do see a lot of.
Is that for ELA specifically or for?
For across the board. Across the board, we see that with kids. Yep. So the next piece of data that we're going to just look briefly at is our NWEA data, and that's because that's the only current data that we actually have from this year. So the NWEA assessment measures what students know and also what they're ready to learn next. So we've talked before about the fact that it identifies what they call the zone of proximal development. So when a student takes the assessment, a teacher can take a deep dive, and it will tell you exactly what month of what grade level they're functioning at, and it will tell you what skills they appear to have mastery of and which ones they're ready for, for learning next, which is great for lesson planning. It can be a very impactful tool for teachers. It's also great if we want to group kids for specific interventions or to accelerate their learning. The test is dynamic in that it adjusts, so as students answer questions, it gets harder or easier. So it will, it will move up questions get more difficult and easier. So it's personalized in that way. NWA also is aligned to college and career readiness standards. It is normed nationally, so this isn't comparing our students against just our students in our state. It compares our students to students nationally. One of the other advantages to this particular assessment is it gives us what they refer to as Lexiles. So a Lexile is a student's level of reading, and having that student Lexile allows you in your classroom to be able to match students to text. So you make sure that whatever a child is reading, it's at their level. It's at their either their independent or instructional level, depending on the goal of that instructional practice that you're engaging in that day. So that's important. It's also important because at our middle and secondary level, as we start introducing content, if we have students in textbooks and reading materials and we're asking them to use those materials in order to learn the science or the social studies or the environmental science, if the text is too hard, it may not be that they're not able to learn the content. It's the fact that they can't access the information because the readability is too high. So Lexiles are important. So we administer grades 3 through 8 is what we have generally administered. This year we did administer to our students up through grade 10 because we really wanted to get some data and we didn't have any great data for those kids. What I will tell you is that in general, Nwea recommends that you test fall, winter, and spring. The vast majority of schools have opted, and I agree with this, it's been my way of operation as well, is that because we spend a lot of time on the state assessment in the spring, we can't over-assess kids. It's not reasonable to do that. And so generally school districts will assess in the fall and fall and winter, but then take the SAS data for the spring. The reason that can be very useful is we can get fall to winter data, and then we can get fall to fall data, winter to winter data, and then we get spring to spring data with SAS. So it still gives us nice data about how kids are doing. One of the things that has occurred here in our system is that we've been very hit or miss about when we administer. So there's a testing window. So in order for results to be very valid and reliable and make a lot of sense, you would want to test within a 4-week period. Because if you go to 6 or 8 weeks, well, they've had now more instruction. So you don't, that from one year to the next, well, you're measuring 3 weeks of instruction based on 8 weeks of instruction. Not the same data. So we want to be testing within the window. We also weren't administering necessarily fall and winter. We've done some fall, we've done some winter, we've done some spring, but we haven't had a consistent way of administering following the defined testing windows. So while we do have a large amount of data, how relevant it is and how much it tells us is questionable. So I would say to you moving forward that we're going to be testing in very defined windows that are aligned to the recommendations of NWEA, and we're going to test in the fall and in the winter. There's also progress monitoring tools that are built into NWEA, which we have not used. They're shorter assessments. So we will be engaging in some professional development with staff, because it would be nice if we started to use some of those additional tools as well as needed. So I'm going to share 2 slides with you, and these are adjusted from the what is in your packet, and I'll copy these and make sure you get these, just because the way that the Google sheet, it kind of was skewing the 50th percentile data. So this is math, and what you see in orange, those are your students that are generally in your top 20%. They're in the top 20th percentile. And then in the green, these are our kids that are in the 20th to the 80th percentile, roughly. Orange, or the orangey yellow, that's your 41st to 60th percentile. Kids in the red are falling in the 21st to 40th, and anybody in blue is in your 20th percentile. When you look at this kind of data, what you generally would like to see is that orange bar is decreasing over time. So you want to see that you've got less kids in that area, and then you want to see the green bar. You want to see more kids in the green, but what you don't really want to see is a lot of kids, that yellow bar, increasing. You don't want to see more kids or less kids that are proficient. Most schools will say, they take all of those yellow kids and they say those are our kids that we really want to bump up into that, that green level of proficiency, and we really don't want to see any kids in blue and red if we can avoid it. So right now we've got some good data. This is not the same cohort. This is all of our kids this year at each of those grade levels, and where their levels of proficiency were. When we look at English language arts, our data looks better. I mean, you see that orange bar and the green bars are much bigger. And just that we just have higher levels of performance. And I'll take you back to what research tells us, which is that if less than 80% of our students are proficient, it's a core instruction problem. It's curriculum, program, and pedagogy. So, these are issues that are that really require a lot of system development. I did offer you a side-by-side comparison because I thought it is interesting to look at math versus ELA, because you can, we see this consistently. We saw it in our SAS data. We see it in our NWEA data. There's we definitely see the proficiency levels different in math and ELA. But again, this is something too that we're seeing nationally and across the state. This is not, unique to Newmarket. So what actions will lead to improved student performance is, again, we've talked about it. We need to have a coherent, aligned curriculum, which we're working on, making sure that teachers have in their hands and that they're starting to live that curriculum. We need high-quality programs and resources. We've talked again, and we'll be talking about it in a moment, the fact that we've had no core math program here since before the Common Core was, before the standards came out. We need to have, aligned local formative and summative assessments that everybody's using and everyone's measuring performance against. We need to have consistent opportunities for teachers to sit down and review data, to collaborate and to plan around that student data, to group students for skills. And we need professional learning, designed to support curriculum and pedagogy. and we can do this together. So I'll take questions while at the same time I'm pulling up the math program proposal presentation. I'm sorry?
What type of math is in 8th grade?
What type of math?
Yeah.
Well, it depends. So, it's math is K to 8, and 8th grade is generally pre-algebra.
Okay.
But some of our students are taking algebra in grade 8 if they're algebra ready.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Deb,
Yes.
I've seen data for several years at this point, and the math always seems to be, you addressed it in terms of not having a curriculum, but it always seems to be lagging behind.
Yeah.
What amount of COVID impact does this data have, or does it not really have any?
I don't think a lot.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure that nationally, the Achieve the Core, which is the national organization, they have indicated that across the nation, the most loss is happening in math. Reason being, students can read, and if they can read, they can access a lot of things.
Right.
But then a lot of that can be done independently. Kids can figure things out a little bit more when it comes to literacy and writing and some of those pieces. Whereas with math, you really need teacher support. When you're stuck, if you're a kid and you're stuck and there's not somebody that can help you solve that problem or help you, with your strategy, there's no getting out of it. You're in the tunnel and you can't find your way out. And so for kids who have been remote, I'm sure that was an issue. We really have been in person
Right.
for the
True.
most part, especially with our elementary kids. I mean, they were largely in person. So I'm sure it's had some impact. I'm sure that it has, but I think overall, that it's a national, for sure, it's a national problem.
And I think, the benefit for me as a board member is to see this data and then see the proposed programs, because it makes sense to me in a logical fashion.
Right.
Any
Hope
other
so.
questions anyone has about that? Before we move into the next thing? Deb, if you want to go ahead and start the math
Okay,
program.
I will do that. Okay. So this evening, I'm going to bring before you proposals for math programs. The first program will be our secondary program, and that will cover grades 6 through 12. And then the second proposal is the elementary program, which is pre-K through 5. So, so the secondary program that the teachers selected, and I mentioned to you before that we really only reviewed top programs, ones that that had the highest levels of vetting from multiple organizations, and they selected a program that is called Illustrative Math. It's the IM curriculum, and this one there are different publishing houses that actually work with IM. One of the most recommended, and I spoke with the writers of the curriculum, some of at their curriculum house, and one of the things that they indicated was that Kendall Hunt for them is one of the preferred vendors because they have extremely robust professional development, which is going to be really key. It's one thing to have a program, but you need teachers to be able to deliver the program. Those two things are equally important. So this program will add resources and materials for grades 6 through 8, and also for Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry. We already recently, in the past couple of years, have added already text for statistics and calculus and some of our other higher math courses. They have new materials that they're happy with. We didn't need to look at those. Part of the program is also an online platform that's called Kidem. And Kidem is where the math lives. It's where all the curriculum lives. It's where students can go in and all of their work can be assigned, where we can monitor how students are performing on their assessments. Assessments can be taken directly in that platform if teachers choose to do that. So the design principles really are kind of the conceptual understanding of math, which is really the why behind the how, right? This is how you solve this problem, but why? Why is that the way you solve the problem? And it's, and it's important because kids can tend to see math as kind of disconnected things. You don't necessarily see the relationship between even different principles of mathematics sometimes. So it's that connectedness. We hear teachers talk a lot about procedural fluency. So it really addresses procedural fluency as well, which is really being able to solve something with speed and accuracy when you're solving. And then the most important thing really, because it's really been the greatest focus and the greatest change in math in the last 10 to 12 years, it's about the application of math. It's about, here's a problem. What math am I going to use to solve this problem? And knowing what that math is. So the lessons occur in 4 phases. The first phase is a warm-up. And it's essentially, it's kind of, they have a whole variety of activities, number talks, notice and wonder, which one doesn't belong, true and false. But it's essentially about a 10-minute period of the time at the beginning of the lesson where they take things kids have already learned, and then they pose a question or they pose a problem, and the students kind of use that math or work with that math in just a warm-up. And they always connect the warm-up to the math that's going to be taking place that day. It's almost like kind of setting the purpose for learning. Phase 2 is really the heart of the lesson, and it usually encompasses 1 to 3 activities. That's what the majority of time is. So that's when the new content is delivered or the new learning. And then phase 3 is there's a whole process of synthesis where they ask questions, they pose questions. Students might be responding in a math journal about their math experience that day, or perhaps they're working on something with a graphic organizer or a concept map, and they might add things to that. They do a lot of concept mapping so kids can see the interrelationship between things. And then there's a cool down. And every day there's a cool down, which is a brief formative assessment. It's an activity that allows the teacher, as the students leave, to understand what did the kids get today, what might they not have gotten. The program includes things like exit tickets and questions and prompts, and to kind of get to that. There are a lot of assessments that are built into the program. So one of the important things is that all of the lessons begin with the teacher being able to set the learning targets. So they identify at the very beginning what you're going to know and be able to do today, and this is how you'll know at the end if you've acquired this knowledge. If teachers choose to use them, and we're going to have lots of conversations about that and training around it, but there are pre-unit diagnostic assessments. So before every unit, the teacher can administer the pre-assessment, and then the teacher will know before they even teach the unit which kids maybe have some holes that need to be filled, maybe some pre-teaching needs to take place before they enter the unit, or maybe some kids have mastery of the unit, and maybe we want to do something to accelerate their learning, and there are lots of opportunities for that built into this program as well. There are cool downs, which we talked about too, which are kind of those little formative assessments. There are end of unit assessments for the end of each unit. There are summatives that occur at the end of the year, at the end of the course. And one of the things that happens is a hallmark of this program too is math modeling. And math modeling is something that we absolutely want to see happening in math classrooms now, which is students are posed a problem. It might be that you need to build a bridge, and these are the materials that you have. And how do you know how much load your bridge can handle? And right, and so based on the math, and the student has to put together the model to solve that problem. All of those modeling activities come with a rubric, so the teacher can then evaluate the student's math proficiency in solving that problem against the rubric, the measurement for that.
Neat idea to
Isn't it?
have a rubric for that, so you
Right.
can,
Yeah.
so everybody's doing consistently, and you're getting the same results. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
So there are supports for everyone. There's intervention materials for all learners. There are materials to accelerate learning. There's nice parent connection pieces. There's extensive professional development, which we'll talk about next, and it also includes the digital platform KIDM. And if we have any students that need it, we can access all of these materials in Spanish as well. So this is our professional development plan for next year. All of our teachers will receive 2 hours of KIDM. That's just 2 hours of training in the digital platform and how to use that. There'll be a 2-day program training, which is just navigating the tools, understanding them, understanding the lesson design, what the structure of the lessons look like. They'll be modeling around what's a warm-up look like, what's a cool-down look like. They'll get to see that in practice. And then there will be 4 2-hour trainings for each grade and each course, which will be specific to that grade or to Algebra 1, whatever that course might be. And then there will be training modules that will be available to be delivered to our special education teachers or for our students with disabilities. Also, each teacher is going to have 2 hours of individual coaching before every unit. So you're getting ready to teach Unit 2. Before you teach Unit 2, you're going to have 2 hours available with the coach to help walk you through, plan for that unit, look at whatever data you want to bring. They're going to have that ongoing support. And then once we get through that, which is really the nuts and bolts of this year, they have a vast menu. We could do, for example, workshops just on math modeling activities, just on accelerated learners. There's a whole vast menu that we can then plug into based on what the teachers feel their needs are. They may say at the end of the year, I really need more coaching next year, but whatever that is, there's just tremendous opportunities for all of those things.
And is all this instruction provided by them?
This all comes through Kendall Hunt. Yep.
And it's just like live, virtual?
Yep, it's live. These right now we're talking about live training.
That's fantastic.
How does this fit with the school year?
So here's the thing. We're gonna plug in some of it on our first. We have 3 days at the beginning of the year. We're gonna plug some of the initial training in there, and then as we've talked about, we've built in our days every month that we have those days. So training's going to happen. So for example, in October, they'll have 2 hours of coaching.
Okay.
In November, they'll have 2 hours of coaching. We'll plug it in, as we can.
Awesome.
Now, if we need to, because I've had to think a lot about this, if we need to, we may say one day, because we've got some long-term subs that we can utilize, I may say, everybody's going to have their 2-hour coaching, so we're going to cover you for 2 hours while you get your coaching with us, and then the sub can rotate. So we'll figure out a strategy for getting it all built in.
Okay.
So the intent is to have this started and going day one?
Yes.
Yes.
Not phased in?
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult to, having just transitioned to a different program at work, it's
Right.
doing it on the fly. It's
And the goal too is that we'll have all of these materials in place. They're going to have, hopefully they'll have them all in their hands before they leave for summer.
Oh, good.
The one thing I am going to offer is the option, I recognize that people don't have the bandwidth right now for a lot. If they're interested at the secondary level, it's a very small group of teachers. And if they want to do this training the week after school, after students leave, we can front load it. But until we know until you approve this, or not, then I'll talk with the math team and ask them, how would you like this implementation, this initial training to look for you, to make sure it meets their needs. Yeah, because that is going to be really important. The PD is really important for people. So one of the things that happens when you are looking at a math program is that you get the best deal if you initiate with multiple years. So I asked them to give us a 3-year proposal, and this includes everything. This is nuts to bolts. It's all of the materials and the professional learning, professional development. It's access to KIDM, and it would cover the program for 3 years. So the general cost for all 3 years together would be $122,452,000 roughly. So when we look at the elementary program, we're looking at, as I said, pre-K through grade 5. The elementary teachers, after trying a lot of lessons and several different programs, they decided that they really liked the Bridges program, and I can certainly understand why. It has some really great hallmarks to the program. There are 8 units of study at each grade level, and there are 20 lessons in each unit per student, so 20 days essentially. There is a great focus on, again, developing those math concepts, developing proficiencies with key skills, and the ability to solve complex problems, to use math, to see a problem, and be able to figure out what math to use. The Bridges kind of blends a direct instruction approach with, they have structured investigations, which again have rubrics as kids move through the investigations. Like we talked about the math modeling before, very similar, and open exploration. They also really try and tap into the linguistic piece of math, and the reason that's really important is one of the reasons kids struggle with math as they move up in the grades is that they don't have the math language, and we talk about that all the time. I mean, okay, it's great that kids know I do this plus this, and this is my plus sign, but do we know that those are add-ins? Do we know that what a subtrahend is? That's math language, and we need to be using math language early on in developing the language of math, those skills, and kids being able to talk about math and write about math. So this is really built into the program.
And it needs to be the consistency.
It does. It needs to be the same language. And it needs to be the correct language, ultimately. The thing is as well is that as students, as we move through math, it has to be really coherent too. We have to be very coherent, because right now, like I say, we've got teachers, they're using teachers pay teachers, and they're trying really hard to pull things together because they know what their standards are. But at every grade level, in every subcategory of math, there are some math you spend more time on in 3rd grade, but less time in 4th and 5th, and more in 5th and less than 3rd and 7th. It's just there's a process of learning math and teaching math, and it's important that math researchers give us the tools to know what those things are. We can't figure those out. It's especially elementary people are generalists. I mean, they're teaching every single subject, so it's overwhelming to try and do that well. So Bridges students, play an active role in their own learning. There's a lot of hands-on, especially in the early grades, a lot of manipulatives, a lot of stories, a lot of things to get kids, touching and having hands-on kinesthetic experience. Again, a lot of talking about math, a lot of using their math to solve problems, and the last one, which is a really important one, is to develop their stamina. We don't want kids giving up when math is hard. We want kids to be able to persevere, to solve problems. And so the program is designed to give kids, opportunities and to have activities that encourage that. And part of that even is the collaborative parts of math. There's a lot of teamwork and kids working together to solve problems and sharing their exciting thinking. So again, with assessments, they identify learning targets. That happens in this program. There are exit tickets, they call them exit cards, but at the end of a lesson for a teacher, at the end of the lesson, the teacher can say, okay, I'm taking your exit tickets, and then they can look at them and say, oh, what did they understand, what didn't they understand? Structured observations, so if they have students working on a project or doing a modeling activity, there are rubrics, what they refer to them as structured observations, so it's checklists for what they're seeing happening. And there are pre-assessments, just like the other, if we want to pre-assess kids prior to the unit before, so you can either backfill or move kids, advanced students. There's post-assessments, and we have summative assessments as well as assessments of math practices. There's another component that, and I think it's one of the things that teachers really like about this program. It's called number corners. And I don't know if any of you have ever remembered times that you've spent in classrooms, and you'll oftentimes see that teachers have a calendar, and they've got the clock, and they have number lines, and they kind of engage in activities, because kids early on can learn math that through those mechanisms. So they're learning to tell time, but it's part of their daily routine. So grades pre-K through 5 has an entire calendar component that they call Number Corner, and it builds skills around those activities. It's about 15 to 20 minutes daily, and a lot of the lessons are a starting point for the discussion in math that they're going to have later. And they extend their skills and concepts, but it also allows them to work on, when we talk about those math fluencies, so it's, some of those math fluencies. So within that, they work, I have another slide, so I won't talk about it. They work on the calendar grid where they look at patterns, numbers, geometric skills. They use a thing called calendar collector, where they do things around estimating, counting, place value, measuring. That happens. There are activities that are computational fluency. An example of that is some very simple things, like they might say, well, today is our 24th day of school. What ways can you write math number sentences that have 24 as a solution? Right, and kids can start playing with adding and subtracting and dividing or whatnot. So just little things like that build in just computational fluency. They add days to the number line, and then they end up using the number line for skip counting and doing all kinds of things like that. K to 1 is a whole big days in school, and they get to the 100th day of school, which we know the kids all love, and so they build that in there. They have daily rectangles, and that's specific to grade 2, because grade 2 is right before we start to teach multiplication. So they start building arrays, 2x4s and 4x6 arrays. And then they have problem strings, which they use in grades 4 and 5. And again, it's equations that kids use. They give equations, or they give prompts to kids and ask them to use different types of math to solve. With no wrong answer, everybody's answer is right, and then they just solving problems, challenging problems. Again, supports for all learners. There's intervention materials for above and below level and at level kids. We have materials available in Spanish in this program. The parent connection piece is very strong in this, and there's a whole parent book that goes home, which allows parents to help their kids, helps them to understand why kids are learning that. Great parent connections, great online resources, extensive professional development again. And the thing about this program, which I also really particularly like, is they have professional development, a ton of it on their website. So if you're teaching a number, any unit or lesson, for most of them, teachers can go in and click on it and watch a webinar, and they range from short, 15-minute ones to some of them are 45 minutes. So it's available 24/7. If a teacher's planning and they're frustrated, they can go to that platform and they can get support. But our initial PD plan for the elementary level is there's an initial 2-hour getting started workshop, or 2 6-hour ones. But they actually break them up over 4 days. There's kind of like some pre-learning, and then they engage. These will be, right now for them, they have not shifted back to in-person. So right now, these are currently scheduled to take place virtually. But hopefully, we'll be able to get some people in-house once they change their modality. The preschool gets a 2-hour workshop. Their program is much less robust, as you can imagine. It's more counting, identifying, one-to-one correspondence. There is a 7-hour workshop for interventionists. So our interventionists will participate in the Getting Started workshops, because they really should have their heads wrapped around the program for kids, because they're going to be working with the kids. But then there's a separate one just for interventionists. There's a 3-hour workshop for administrators at the elementary level, which is great because as teachers are implementing and administrators are out visiting, and I'll be doing the same thing, I'm going to participate in this. When we go into the classroom, we want to know what to look for. What should we see happening? So there's that's kind of a critical piece as well. There will be 6 hours of on-site coaching for each grade level. So they will come in and they'll coach specifically at that grade level. The way those often work is that, we might say we're going to take a couple of our subs and we're going to have a couple of subs maybe cover 2 teachers and have 2 others go in, and then there might be a coach in there modeling, doing some modeling, or they might, meet after school and do some coaching, or it might be one of our PD days that they coach some individual grade levels. And we also have 6-hour, so we have 3-hour team support sessions. So the team support sessions they work with like the whole grade level team. They'll sit down, problem solve, talk to them, what problems are you running into, how are things going? If they want to look at any data, they'll do that with them. And then there will be 13 weeks of individual online coaching. So every teacher will have they'll have an individual coach assigned to them for 13 weeks. And they'll be able to, and it doesn't have to be 13 weeks in a row, by the way. They get 13 weeks over the course of the year, at which they can reach out and get individual one-to-one support. Same thing as the secondary level. They have a tremendous menu of other things, and once we get through our initial implementation and training and people are using the program, then they'll know what else they need, and then we'll make decisions about that. The 3-year implementation for that, which includes nuts to bolts, everything that you would need, is right around $137,000. I think it's also, I'm sure it's also important to know that after those 3 years, what happens? What does that look like? So beginning in the 26-27 school year, the Illustrative Math program would run approximately $26,752. I pulled out everything that was consumable, but keep in mind that printing may go up, the cost may go up, but this is a very reasonable annual cost for your math program. And because Kendall Hunt, that also includes the subscription to Kidem. It's entirely possible that the staff may say, you know what, we don't need all components, or we're going to just use some of the online tools and don't, so we never know exactly, but roughly that's what we would be looking at for an annual cost. Bridges would be only about $12,616 annually, which is really very inexpensive. They have they have a digital platform. Everything is accessible and part of it. And as long as you're using the program, they don't charge you a fee to use their platform. They only would charge you a fee to use their platform if you weren't using their program. So your annual cost would probably run about $40,000 a year for math, for your consumables. So that is the math program proposal in a nutshell.
I actually read this and I loved everything I read. I love the exit tickets. I want to understand what they don't know.
Right.
I want to understand, what do I need to teach differently so that they can understand it. I also like how it goes to the different levels, because you do have those kids who get bored, and when they get bored, they get in trouble. So if I'm able to give them an accelerated program and challenge them, that keeps them out of trouble.
Right.
I really liked all the programs, both sets.
I did have a few questions. So we're talking about $90,000 a year for both programs for the first 3 years, per year for the first 3 years. About.
It's an upfront cost
No,
Which
there's
is-
an, there's
No,
an,
I think it's extremely reasonable.
no, the
I'm just putting
initial
just the-
implementation generally occurs in year one, and that's all of your teacher kits. That's like the most expensive year. And, so that's when, because there's a lot of things that we would be purchasing, that would be only 1 year. So really, and I can give you the breakdown of everything. Right now, if you did the initial purchase, it would be less than that, because they are actually discounting the student materials 50% initially. But what the largest expenses are the teacher kits and the professional development. I mean, there's about $30,000 of professional development built into both of those packages as well. So, which is part of the implementation.
No, it's a requirement, obviously.
Yeah.
Are there any programs that we're discontinuing that's gonna save us a little bit?
We don't have one.
Okay.
That's the thing. We don't have anything. I mean, even, Gary, what I don't really understand is, even when we at some point adopted everyday math, every year we should have been ordering consumable materials, which would have been, consumable math kits and student books. I don't know how or when that started. It's generally an expectation that you have an annual cost for consumable curriculum materials. So I'm just not sure how or why that happened. But it seems like it happened a long time ago.
Is there any issue with having two different programs, one at the younger age,
No,
one at the older?
there's not, because they're both aligned to the college and career readiness standards. And essentially by the time, you get to grade 5 and that transition into that kind of pre-algebra work, which really, there's a shift in grade 6, it's fine. And they're both using appropriate math language. They're using the same language. They're not using different language or different approaches.
And then I have one final question, which is
Yes.
extremely unfair. I'll preface that, and I'll frame it by saying I realize it takes a while to get this implemented. It takes a while to get the teachers ramped up on doing it and being comfortable with it. The students to engage in it and all that. When can we expect to see kind of results, if there's going to be results from this? Is it the sort of thing where the kindergarten kids will see it in 3rd grade, or is it
Yeah.
halfway through the year we might start to see bumps, or?
Now, that's a really good question. And I'll tell you something. Normally, they say when you adopt a new core program that there's an implementation dip, they call it, right?
Oh,
So
interesting.
usually they'll say that scores will go down because everything's different. I don't really see that happening because we didn't have anything. So I don't anticipate a dip. I think kids will do better quickly. I think next year, by the end of the year, we'll see that students are doing better. Our greatest challenge is going to be, and I've already gotten some feedback from our teachers who have been trying some of these lessons. They're trying to put kids in lessons that they don't have the foundational math for. And so I think the greatest challenge might be for some of our, upper elementary, middle school kids who we're trying to put into math, that maybe they're going to struggle with some of the lessons. And that's one of the things that these implementation coaches will have to help us to navigate, because there are strategies around that. So we may have a lot of kids in a lot of intervention. The other thing that's going to change is this Bridges program. It assumes 90 minutes of math. So kids are going to be spending more time in math. Now, it's not all at one hit. It includes that 10 to 15 minutes of calendar. But now rather than it just be, hey, it's Monday and what time is it? Math will be part of that morning activity. And so I think they're going to be getting more math. And with these assessments, we'll know as we're moving through, because they're going to be doing these formative assessments all along. So it won't be a surprise. But we'll know something, because we're going to have our fall Nwea, and we're going to get a benchmark score in fall, and then we're going to have our winter. So we'll see from fall to winter. We might see some exciting things. We don't know. But at the very least, then we'll have next year, we'll have like fall this year, fall next year, and we'll be able to see what's happening. And we'll be getting some teacher feedback as well.
So I do have one more question.
question if no one else does, based on what you just said. So it's a new question in fairness to me. So if we're doing 90 minutes of math now, is it that math is being, as you said, incorporated to other aspects of the day? Not that we're limiting other instruction
Nope.
to bring math? Okay, excellent.
Okay, so we're not robbing Peter to pay Paul?
No.
Okay.
We're adding Peter to Paul's.
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
Or something like
We're
that.
incorporating math and
Yeah.
other things.
Gotcha.
You know, Deb, I've got to say, as someone who is new on the board, I can't thank you enough. You know, a lot of parents have not paid attention to what's been going on in the curriculums and in the test scores, and the kids test and the thing comes home and the parents look at it, and, you know, life gets busy. And you all have opened the eyes to many, many parents in this town about the inequities in the learning, and it's sad and scary and all of those things that all of these parents are feeling right now. And you look at the cost and you look at the scores and you say to yourself, what is the investment that I want to bring to my family and to my peers, and making sure that we do have a curriculum and that our teachers aren't dusting off some old book and they're on their own, and having you really giving some structure and giving a plan, getting us to this accreditation and getting these math programs in line so our kids have a fighting chance just like any other town does. I really can't say thank you enough to all of your work. I really, truly appreciate that. And there are many, many moms and dads that feel the same way.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
I will tell you too that your teachers are very excited to be able to use these resources. They really are, and they've really already invested a lot of time and energy into trying them and exploring them and understanding, you know, what it's going to look like, and they're very invested, so.
I appreciate that too, because a lot of times when new things are implemented, it's just sort of hoisted upon them.
Yep.
You know, this is what you're going to do. Now they've been working with it, they've given you feedback, and they have enjoyed working with these materials, and so I think that is a very important piece of the process that may not have been there in the past.
No, they want kids to do well.
Right.
That's why
Yes.
they're there every day. They really
Yes.
are very committed, and they have been. When I went to them in the winter and we started this discussion, I was actually really blown away by how much they just were saying, we know, we need, like, we don't, like, help us, you know. And so they're ready. They're ready and they're excited.
Are there any other questions about anything?
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
I purely admit this is a new kid's question.
Go, no wrong question, Andrew, ever.
Now, I'm guessing this is coming from the budget that was approved in March, correct?
Some of it will be funded through grants and some will be funded through resources that we have for instructional materials.
Oh, okay. So when the budget was written for the March vote, was a number, like a ballpark number?
No, we
Building.
weren't looking at that. We were looking at that time. But there are many resources because we have been in a COVID,
Okay.
environment that we have not moved forward with purchasing. So
Okay.
we're going to use some resources in our operating budget and spend out our instructional materials accounts. And we also have access to some grant money that will pay for some of this as well.
Okay, so I guess my always biggest concern is like when I see a number like this for math and just knowing I'm in one of the like quote unquote subjects that don't get as much attention, that like this is not coming from like art or
Nope.
social studies.
No.
Okay.
No,
And-
we've
and-
purchased everything that we need for the current year. We've met with our administrators, we've had teachers submit any final requests. We'll probably at the next meeting or the one after that, we'll share with you where we land. But as I said earlier in the year, there's a lot of money we haven't spent for things because we couldn't run programs. And so this is a perfect opportunity to take advantage of this and make sure that we have everything we need to implement this with fidelity. Oftentimes you'll see school districts will pay for the first year, and because the resources weren't bought up front, one, it costs you more money, and two, you don't have the support structures around to make sure that the program is implemented and is successful. I mean, we want to make sure that we're getting the results that we're hoping for, and you can't do that if you shortchange, especially where we're at here in the school district now. So, it's I think we all as educators recognize that this is a real problem here. My conversations with teachers have been the same. Nobody wants to see kids struggling. Nobody wants to see kids failing. What's frustrating is when you don't have the ability to address the needs that you're seeing. And this allows us to address the needs of all students, and that's what I like about it.
Yeah.
All students, you know? Oftentimes, programs don't provide as robust of a continuum of resources to support all learners. And kids who are flying in math should be able to remain engaged. And those kids that are struggling, to have a component that provides, resources to your interventionists, so that, again, everything is aligned, is phenomenal. So for us, this is, kind of a mission-critical investment. And I believe, as Deb does, as we've looked at the data here, that you're going to start seeing results pretty quickly, because this is going to help you to align horizontally and vertically. Teachers need a tremendous amount of support to go from where they are now to this, but this proposal here provides them with everything that we need. We have Deb now. She will devote herself, as will other administrators, including myself, to making sure that we are supporting them in any way.
Yeah.
Because it's not acceptable. Numeracy is the language to so many other academic areas, and kids need to get these foundational skills in order to be successful and access opportunities as they move up through the programming that we have here at all levels. So.
I would
Great
also
use of
say
grant
that I
money.
think social studies is very cool.
Thank you,
and I
appreciate
and
it.
I
That's next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I would, I've we're talking with all departments.
Yeah.
And we want everybody we want all departments to have the resources in order to deliver the best experiences to kids.
Awesome. I appreciate that.
Oh,
Thank you.
no. Yeah.
Any other questions about this?
I'm just gonna say, next year, I'm looking forward to having those classes and those teachers coming here and talking to us and telling us what they're teaching, and have the kids tell us what they're learning. Like, that's what we've missed the past year and a half. Just hearing the voices, and that's what I'm looking for. This stuff is exciting. The
It
new
is,
classes being offered, like, that's exciting.
What would be really fun is if if things get back to normal and we could have a math night where, where we can have like the everything displayed, the manipulatives, the tools, have kids show what they're learning, their projects. I hopefully things will be better and we could have a math night.
At some point they will be.
Yeah.
At some point they will be.
I know this is a little bit out of the wheelhouse for the school board, but I don't know how awesome it would be if, like, I know there's probably a school newspaper, Newmarket, like, they could, like, publish something after, like, the professional development, that the public could see about why they lost that day of instruction, what they're gaining from it, and then also with this.
Sure.
It's a great idea.
It's a great idea.
Something for the public to know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask the board permission to modify the agenda one more time. And I seek a motion to approve the Illustrative Math program for 3 years at a total of $122,425.46, and the Bridges program at $137,000 for 3 years.
So moved?
Second.
We have a motion for Ms. McKinney and a second for Mr. Swanson. Any more discussion? Deb, thank you for the thorough presentation.
Thank you.
We'll move to the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's approved, unanimous.
Thank you so much.
Great
This
job.
is,
Thank you,
this
Deb.
is just
Great
going to
job.
be,
So excited.
it's going to be so great for kids. Really is.
All right, Jana, come on up. Thank you for being
How is
patient
it
and
I always
holding.
get the slot after the really
I know.
exciting stuff?
I was thinking
We're
that as
warmed up
sat
for
through all
you.
this.
It's tough to follow this stuff. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Deb. Regrettably, many of you may already know, but early last week, Mr. Lockley informed the district that he will be leaving us June 30th. So he had an opportunity that came up that was just too good to pass on. He has, we'll miss him. But obviously that requires some planning on our part, because as you've been seeing, as I bring RFPs forward to you, we have many projects and many irons in the fire that we have spun up. So I thought it might be helpful to present to you kind of a transition plan to let you know the things that we're looking at. This isn't all inclusive, but to kind of give you a real high-level overview of how we're making sure very few things batons hit the ground. So the first thing that we're going, obviously, advertising and hiring. We already have an active posting out there. We've received several applications. I've already reached out to Mr. Fournier on the town side. This is a shared position, so we already kind of have a plan as to how we're going to proceed with the interviewing process, which is similar in nature to what we did before. The next piece is we have a group that Gary reported on, which is our facilities model analysis that we've been working pretty hard on to kind of bring something forward. We did a little bit of soul searching in light of this transition and felt like we really need a little bit more opportunity, not necessarily on the committee side to evaluate best options, but on the implementation side, because now we're going to have somebody that would be overseeing whatever model we put in place, and we just feel like trying to put that in place in time for July 1st just isn't realistic, nor would it be well done. So what we're hoping to do is continue. We currently have just started this week because we had to wait for background checks, but we have some outsourced custodial staff through a company called Citywide that has just started this week. They're coming in and they're providing much needed support to our valuable custodial staff. We're at the very beginning stages of kind of mapping things out and figuring out scheduling and things, but I think that we're going to have a pretty quick ramp up, and I think staff in the building are going to see a real big difference real quick, which I'm delighted about. And I'm also more delighted to be able to say to our custodial staff who have just worked so hard this year that the cavalry's here, you know? So, but what we are going to do, and we are going to put out an RFP. We will obviously ask this company, but we'll put it out to everybody to, out on the street to see if we can get roughly 6 months of continuity of service to make sure that we can continue to support our staff and that we have time to implement whatever plan we decide on. We felt that was a wise investment. As you know, from the cost side, our staffing is down. So we have monies in salaries that we're not expending. So we're kind of hoping to do a flip-flop and use that towards outsourced services to help us buy some time. The third need that is quite pressing is we have several projects, one of which is quite technical in nature. We're going to be looking at, and many of you remember, we installed dimmable fixtures at the junior senior high, but we never implemented the controlling portion of those fixtures. So they're there, but we don't have the ability to dim. So we are getting the assistance of our lighting engineer that helped out with our project to put together an RFP because it's quite technical, the specifications of what we want. And then we are going to put that RFP out there to get somebody in to do this work, or hopefully over the summer while students aren't in the building. Mr. Lockley, as you know, was a licensed master electrician. So I felt very comfortable with him being able to oversee this project. I'm a great deal less confident with my ability to do so.
We are too.
Yeah, so we'll leave that there. But what I am going to look into is reaching out to some resources that I know of to see if we can hire somebody on a consultancy type of basis to oversee the implementation of that project, just to make sure that we're getting what we need, that it's aligning with the RFP. I just don't have the electrical wherewithal to oversee that kind of thing. So, and that's the one I'm thinking of primarily, but there may be some other things with building projects that we may reach out to get some help. So I just wanted to make the board aware that that's kind of where our mind is. We certainly want to make sure that all of these projects are done well and in a meaningful way, that we don't touch them again. So we want to make sure that we're taking all the due diligence that we need to spin these up, follow them through, and give a great product to the community. So in a nutshell, that's kind of our transition plan. If anyone has any questions, I'll answer them as best I can about details, but.
No, it seems pretty straightforward, and obviously the reduction in staff led to some funding to have to, handle that outsourcing. It's unfortunate, but it's common right now.
It really is. I've reached out to several other school districts, just today, as a matter of fact. I have a list of 5 that are in New Hampshire, never have used outsourcing before other than, you know, special things or certain fire events, and they are contracting with outsourcing services because we just have been unable to meet the needs of our facilities. So it's not just isolated here, it's not just isolated there. You know, we have in food service too. We've outsourced that this year just to keep things, you know, keep providing a high product to students and making sure everyone gets what they need. So, you know, it's been a year of growth for a lot of us professionally, but certainly for me personally, being new to the district, this has been a very invigorating environment in which to grow. So, with that, if anyone have any questions on that, I'm happy to take that. But if you don't, what I will say is I kind of alluded to it on April 6th. This board was gracious enough to offer the administration a waiver. As you know, we didn't have a lot of time to prepare for bringing students back full-time. We had concerns about our facilities doing that. We lost our 1 day of free time where kids weren't in the building, where we could kind of catch up at least on the cleaning. And then, of course, we had issues with bringing kids back and additional kids coming back to the building, and we didn't know initially out of the gate how many that would be. But we knew we didn't have enough seats for them. So there were two areas that we did exercise that way, the suspension of the policy, that 30-day suspension, and one was with Rudarius Management, which is, I've called them Citywide, that's their formal name. That we had priced out the cost based on the number of people and the number of hours, but it took us probably 3 weeks to get the background check in place, so I don't anticipate that the cost will be ultimately this for the year. I was putting it together in case it was. And then Demco, we ordered some student desks and chairs. Our intention was that we needed the space, but we're also trying to think of things long-term. And we met with the building principal, the facility staff, the food service people, and as we've talked about and as Susan explained, next year with COVID, there is a possibility we still may have some distancing protocols, certainly in a place like lunch where people have to unmask for our youngest students who may not be fully vaccinated. So what we did is we looked at these desks. They're triangle in shape. They have a book box, which isn't particularly helpful in the cafeteria. We don't want people putting things in there. But we can seamlessly move these desks that initially we think we might use in the cafeteria to make rows into our 5th grade desk replacement cycle. So it's not wasted money. We're kind of pre-buying these desks as which are already part of our cycle, but they will provide us with an enormous amount of flexibility going into next year. We bought them this year because we were thinking that we were going to need to do that and implement that this year, and we just, with the lead time on furniture, we just didn't know how it was going to happen. So my thanks to the board for allowing us that opportunity. It really is very helpful to have that kind of support when we face these decisions that are kid critical about what we do. So that's kind of my report back to you on those 2 things.
Jana, I just wanted to thank you for managing the operational side of things as effectively as you have this year. You have been chasing up pieces of plexiglass and desks and everything all year, and I have appreciated it sincerely.
Well, thank you. It's been great. You know, I certainly can't speak to the instructional side that Ms. Black speaks so eloquently to, but boy, I can buy stuff. So
you buy it, you find a cheap price. I love it, and I really appreciate it very much.
We try and be as creative as possible. So thank you for that. Appreciate it. Does anyone have any questions for me about those 2 pieces? Okay, great.
Jana, do you and Jason want to do the bids? So you guys.
That would be wonderful. I actually, I'm going to defer to Jason on the 2 technology ones. One of them has to do with the projector system.
Right.
And I feel that if you have any questions, I asked him to be here tonight because he's looked at that with our facilities director, and it's quite a technical project, and I just wanted to make sure if you had any questions, you could answer them here tonight. So
And
if you
board
don't
members,
mind, I'll,
thank you for allowing me to modify the agenda again, but I think it's only fair.
yeah, I'll
definitely.
pass it over to Jason if he doesn't mind. Thank you.
Hello, Jason,
Good
thank
evening.
you.
So we have two items on the agenda. The first one was the computer carts with AC adapters. I feel like I may have explained this last time, but real quick, we bought a lot of equipment to support our remote learning last spring. Now we need a place to store all that in the elementary school classroom. So that's what this request would do. It would provide us with carts for charging and storage at the elementary school, one in every classroom. We went out to bid. We got 4 competitive bids, and the one I would recommend is SHI for the total of $28,260. These are Bradford carts. If you've been in the school before, you've probably seen them. High quality, lifetime warranty, and with these we can actually do custom colors to match the elementary school. So, any questions on that one?
Because these will be to store them because the kids probably aren't going to be bringing them home anymore.
Sure, that's the plan, to move away from a one-to-one at the lower grades and into provide a device for every student.
Now, of course, when we have our planned days, for PD and curriculum development, if they need them, they would go home at that time. But the idea isn't that kids would take them to and fro. We're planning on live
As needed.
on-campus learning next year.
Great.
As needed, and that's where the extra chargers come in too. We will need them.
Jason, do you want to go to anyone have questions about the carts? Then let's move on to the cafeteria and projector and screen.
Perfect. So this was another RFP bid process, and not a lot of equipment here. It's just a laser projector. It's similar to the solution you'd see in here, but it will be installed at the junior senior high school cafeteria. Nice big motorized screen. We'll have an input down in the floor, one up on the stage, one in the control room. So it's something that Mrs. Blake would be able to use for some of her productions possibly. This will tie into our existing sound system. So that's already there. We'll be able to use that, so no additional costs there. We had three different vendors came out. We had a mandatory walkthrough that they participated in, and we ended up I was recommending Clegg Sound, who actually did the audio there. So they were low bid. They have experience working in the district. We've worked with them with the addition renovation project. So great company, and the most competitive price as well. And I will point out on this one, this was a FY22 planned expense, but I'm going to ask that we consider purchasing it this year, and again, if not, it is in the FY22 budget.
It's good that you were going with the same company that did the audio. That's great.
Yeah,
Seems
yeah,
fun.
familiar with working
Right.
with them, and
Yeah.
they know the sound piece, which I know little about. That's outside of my wheelhouse. So
No, thank you.
And Jason, the last one, the sound amplification equipment.
I'll take that
Oh.
one. That's okay.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Jason.
Thank you again. This is a request that came about as a bunch of, out of a series of discussions on the student services side. For those of you that are educators, you may be familiar with some of this pieces of equipment. They're called either front row or red cats, but they basically have a amplification system, and the teacher wears a microphone around her neck so that you don't get those kids in the back row that can't engage as fully as those in the front. And there's some great data which Susan may be able to speak to more than I can, but there's some great data about how having the sound levels at these appropriate levels for the kids in the room really enhances learning and connects the kids more with the teacher. So we were looking at, we thought at first that this was going to be a single source type of item, the red cats, but we did find another manufacturer, Front Row. So in order to follow our competitive bidding policy, we obtained quotes from both of them. Unfortunately, there's only the two, and they deal with a set distributor, so it didn't make a whole lot of sense for us to publish an RFP to get quotes back from these two. So, but we did follow all of the parameters on the purchasing policy. And it is our recommendation that we accept that you approve the Red Cat equipment from Lightspeed at a total cost of $25,499.
I do want to interject here. Another way that they're used is when kids do read aloud, and a kid will read a paragraph or a page. I was in a classroom the other day, and the mic was brought around, and the paraprofessional held it near their mouth, which was wonderful because everybody in the classroom, sometimes kids' voices are very low, and especially when they get nervous, and they're starting to read, they can kind of get a little quieter. So it was wonderful because you could hear every student when they had their turn to read, everyone from one side of the room to the other to hear. So that's another way that those systems are
Thank you.
used. And it really does improve the experience for students and for teachers because everybody can kind of hear and communicate in a way that's not possible if you don't have these systems.
And they often can be part of an IEP.
Correct.
So I'm amazed that we haven't had that many up to this point.
Right.
And the nice thing, if you have them in most classrooms, that one child that may have a hearing disability or the two that might have a hearing disability, it's used for everyone. It's not just used for that one kid. So they don't feel singled out.
Often you see when building projects are done today that all classrooms are provided with these kinds of systems. It's part of the collection.
Really?
Of course, at the time you were engaged in planning
Right.
for this.
Yep.
You have limited budget and funds and everything. So instead of a kid that has an IEP, and then another student has another need, and then the students move to have services someplace else. The system's set up in this room. It just really becomes challenging. So this will really be enormously beneficial to all kids.
Explain how, so every teacher would get one of these in every classroom?
This is at the, let me see, I think she said this is primarily at the, there's 22 units, so that must be primarily at elementary level.
I think it's to finish off the elementary.
Yeah.
Are these the portable ones?
Yes.
Towers? There's actually, I know a lot of districts buy these. Would there be the ability to, like, if we combine with another district to buy more, would that impact the price at all, or is that not even a possibility to work with another district to cut down
Well,
costs like that?
Could be challenging at this point.
Is it,
Yeah. That would be challenging. I do know that we got a discount on, at least on the Red Cats because of the volume, but I can tell you that the front row, they issued us a quote, but they said if you wouldn't be getting these until middle of next year because they're so backordered. So we're kind of hoping to be able to move forward. A lot of these things that have technologies and lead times, we're looking to try and be ready to go in the fall, be all set. So, some of these lead times that we've been fighting all year on all fronts are still present in our supply chain, unfortunately.
Any other questions about these three bids?
The lifespan of these units is? I mean, is this something we're gonna have to buy every 3 years or 2 years or?
I know they have batteries, so there are battery replacement things that you have to do every year for the microphones because they're not wired. I've dealt with this in a different district. As far as the units themselves, they tend to hold up very well. They're kind of like an amplifier type of a piece of equipment, like you might, well, different than in a band, but it basically is just that kind of technology. So you apply electricity to it, and it kind of amplifies the sound. The pieces that can require replacement, in my experience, are the microphones, because they tend to get dropped or broken. Those tend to be the higher replacement items, but those are a fraction of the cost of the amplification units.
Any other questions? I don't, and you guys can tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't see a reason why we can't have one motion to accomplish all three of these things. So I seek a motion to accept the bid for computer carts and AC adapters from SHI for a total of $28,260. I move that we, continuing that motion, to accept the Newmarket Junior Senior High Cafetorium projector and screen from Clegg Sound for $21,190. And finally, for the elementary school, to get the red cap amplifiers for a total of $25,499.
So moved. I second.
We have a motion from Ms. McKinney and a second from Ms. Durant. Any further comment? We'll move to the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, all three of those bids approved.
Thank you
Jana, thank
very
you.
much.
Jason, thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Good night, thank you.
Okay. The next thing on our agenda, back in the discussion items, is Gary has sent me a list of things to add to the agenda. One of them was options for accreditation, and Gary, I thought you could just sort of ask questions that you had for that, and then we could take it from there.
Yeah, just basically like to understand for the board and for the public what options there are for accreditation, if any. I'm thinking, so for instance, are we looking to accredit only the high school, or do we have the high school and junior high? I know some schools do high school, junior high, and elementary school.
So, here in Newmarket, legally, our middle school is part of our elementary school. Though here, we have the middle school and high school. So, we don't go through an accreditation process at the middle school level here because our high school is independent. I know it seems odd, and it's something, maybe when there's time, you should separate it so you have a discrete middle school, but when we do our reporting, we have to report all our middle schoolers at the state level with our elementary school numbers. So they're not, because you really don't have an official middle school, it wouldn't be part of an accreditation process, and it's never been accredited, part of the accreditation process here.
So it would just be the high
So
school.
it's high school, yep.
So it's really separated then from the vertical and horizontal curriculum alignment.
Well, you would
I mean,
still-
ideally, you'd want to do it.
No, you would always in a school district have that, as long as you were a comprehensive school district. In other words, we weren't K-8 and then our high school was Exeter or whatever. Then curriculum alignment can be more challenging, but we would still align the curriculum as we have with the core math program. You're looking at it vertically.
I guess
But in terms of accreditation, the accreditation process, that is a high school thing here. Yeah.
Because I guess my thought is, if we're in the crisis that we're in, and we're at risk of losing accreditation, and we're really only focusing on the high school, should we worry about getting their curriculums aligned 9 through 12 first, even though it's not ideal, so that way we can get the accreditation renewed sooner with less concern about losing it?
Well, we are doing as much as we can, but as Principal Dalton, Assistant Superintendent Black, and I have shared with you, there's about 15 years worth of backlog of work here, and we're not going to be able to address that by the time accreditation happens here. We have to kind of accept the fact that we're going to do as much as we can, but we're not going to be able to come through this process with a stellar accreditation. What we have done, so some of the things we have done in spite of being in the middle of a pandemic is address the math issue. So now we can say, even all through the high school, that we do have, core program that aligns to college and career readiness standards, competencies, and we have introduced a common format for curriculum. We don't have it all developed, but at least we can show that we have something. And it's our hope that by doing a few of these things, which normally you would do collaboratively with your staff, that we at least have something in place to launch from. We don't want to go too far down the path here of trying to address every one of their standards, because it starts with a vision, and we're not in any position to even go through a visioning process right now. So, so we've tried to, you know, put a few pieces in place to show that, you know, we're making progress, and we have to accept that we're going to have some sightings on our NEASC evaluation, and that's okay. I mean, it's okay. I don't, you know, the standards, as you know, are different than they were the last time. Tomorrow is, so we have done some other things. You know, tomorrow is our orientation with NEASC. We have 2 co-chairs to oversee the process, Amanda Bauer, and who's English, and Stephanie Cleary, our math department coordinator. And the 2 of them and Dave will be participating tomorrow in that. And then once we learn what their new process and expectations are, you know, we'll sit down and put to bed the best plan we can. But I think we have to go in eyes wide open. You know, you can't do the amount of work that's required to get us back in line. You know, I don't know that there's much more that we can do at this late point.
So I guess then, to help me understand it as kind of a layperson, so we're expecting to have our accreditation renewed, but just have items or action items or items that need improvement over a certain period of time?
So there's 2 things that you were cited for the last time. Mm-hmm. One was basically your facilities, your infrastructure. You've addressed that through your building project, so that should not be something. And the way the current standards are constructed, they're very different looking than they were the last time. Curriculum is the foundational piece of your educational program. You were cited on that as being deficient the last time, and you were given some pretty concrete things that needed to take place. That I think that there were fits and starts, but there was nothing that was ever brought to fruition on that. And so we're not going to be able to do 10 years worth of work in a year during a pandemic. So what we're doing is we're trying to say, what is the first step? First step would be you have a vision, you identify what you want students to know and be able to do, and then you backwards design the learning so that kids leave here, exit here with those skills, competencies, and you know, we can say that, you know, we've accomplished what we had hoped to. We can't do that. We can't do that and then align everything from there. So what we're doing is we have provided our teachers in every single course with you know, an outline for their course that is in UBD format, that is the commonly accepted format for curriculum. We've shared that with you before, stage 1, 2, and 3, that has at least a starting point, so we can say that we do have a common format. The work has not been done, you know, but at least we have a common format. When we introduce new courses, they're starting with something. They're not inventing something. We're starting with that, and then the teachers from there can make adjustments so long as they're meeting the standards and competencies and, you know.
So tomorrow's going to be a good, you know, an important meeting. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's great.
so what tomorrow is about is, this is the new process. Have you gone through the new version?
I have not.
No, okay. I haven't either, because the last time I went through this, it was still on the old standards. So we're going to learn what they are. And then, you know, we're going to do as much as we can to try to put us in the best position to not do that. But if you know, there's nothing more that we can really do other than the few things we've been trying. The math program, at least we have something that's horizontally and vertically aligned in one area, Usually that's a 3 to 5 year process normally. And so we're moving at stealth speed in spite of being in a pandemic, but it's not.
More often than not, I feel like they just want to see a school moving forward. They want to see progress. Is that a fair assumption when it comes to accreditation?
I think the purpose of it is for you to take to use this NEASC framework to evaluate what you're doing and identify, you know, in what ways that you are providing what would be best practices for a learning experience for kids, whether it's their environment, whether it's the supports learning experiences kids need, that you have a vision that what you're doing aligns to something. They're not just random experiences, that they're connected in some kind of a way. My experience with NEASC is the old NEASC, which I understand the new process is at least aligned to modern standards. A lot of what they had previously aren't things we would implement, because frankly, it's like there's things that you would aspire to 15 years ago. You just wouldn't do it in the current model of education. So with this modernization, my understanding is it's less onerous, a little less I gotcha, and supposed to be more about continuous improvement. But there's certain things that you have to have in place in a school that aren't present here. And
I guess that's what I'm trying to understand and learn, is what things aren't in place, what things are we gonna try to accomplish, how and when are we gonna try to accomplish them, is what I'm trying to understand.
Learn a whole lot tomorrow.
I think
It sounds like we may,
You know,
which
that
would be good.
is gonna give, you know, maybe an outline that says, okay, here are the 20 things that are in ranked order of, and we can start ticking
But that's
off.
what next year is about. It's
Yeah.
a self-study, okay? We're doing a self-study next year. And then out of that, we will evaluate where we are. And then a team will come in, and they will look at all the work that we present to them, and they will do some observations, and then they will write up a report. So I know it's not what we want. Certainly, you know, nobody wants to be in the position we're in, but right now our focus is not on NEASC. Our focus is on trying to do the things that we need to accomplish right now. We need to get our learning loss plan, our summer schools launched. We have to engineer all of that, you know? So we're gonna take that and we're gonna put it over here, and we'll take a peek at that as soon as we can get through, you know, what we've already queued ourselves up for. I mean, your vote tonight will allow us to at least get resources. Hopefully we'll get them in time to give them to teachers, whether they have the capacity to even open up the math stuff this summer. We're not even gonna pressure them. We're not gonna pressure them. There isn't, people are tired. This has been one hell of a year for all of us, and we're
Would you
just
say
trying
19
to,
more days?
we're trying to
19 more
make this
days. Not that
ending.
I'm counting.
There are a letter out today, I can tell you that.
Yeah, you know,
I saw that.
I mean, we're at surviving at this particular point, and it would be wonderful if there was any capacity to do more, but there just isn't. People have left it all on the field this year. You know, I mean, we've wrung dry anything that we could possibly do, and we've overextended ourselves over and over again.
I
And
don't think there's a staff member that we haven't drained. That is from top to bottom. We have drained everyone. And we've siphoned even more.
we've done amazing work here this year. I know that there's a huge gap. We have done amazing work here without having systems in place. We have to, literally everything that we do is practically by hand. And in spite of that, we have been able to, you know, accomplish a lot. And I know it's not going to be enough to satisfy many, but
Well, I hope
I
you don't
think
get the
it's-
impression I'm not satisfied. I'm just trying to understand what we think is possible to do, what we don't think is possible, what our plans are. And it sounds, you know, it sounds reasonable to me that we really aren't going to be focusing too much on this right now because we can't. That's a reasonable answer to me.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
think so, too.
but I'm saying this for you so much, as just to say that, none of us are,
It's
you know,
very
I,
hard.
it was.
This year has been, so challenging for everyone, and we're so close to the end, and, getting the kids graduated and getting the teachers home for a while, and then this math program and all of the things that are coming down the pike. The accreditation, that organization would be foolish if they ever looked at where we are right now and where we're going and what we've set up, and, Deb and Jana and Mr. Dalton and Susan and all of these people, Mr. Pine, all of the people that are setting up. I mean, they're gonna come here, I believe, anyway, and be like, all right, you guys, you're doing it, you're making it happen. It's just gonna take some time.
We're just very, very far behind here.
And
We're
the other
just-
thing it's gonna take is consistency. And I think
Sure.
that when I've said this before, when we have the new people come to the board, we need to make sure that every step of the way we're communicating. This is why we have this person. We have seen, every time Deb Black has stood behind that microphone, we have seen why we need, and we have an assistant superintendent, curriculum coordinator, data manager, like all that under that one name. Why do we have that? That's why. That work would not have been able to get done if we didn't have that assistant superintendent.
And it's true, because the rest of us are running around trying to keep your schools open. And if we didn't have that position, she doesn't get involved in the day-to-day operation. She, I have kept her completely insulated so that we could focus our attention on addressing as much as we can in this area. And so we're able to make some progress by blocking for her and not getting her involved in all of the other things that we have to, because and it's not ideal, but, I think that we have made huge progress this year, and more important, and my worry more than NEASC, is that 50% of the kids last year were not eligible to graduate. That means they didn't have access to opportunities when they left here.
And 20% this year, and we have to remind ourselves, there's still a percentage that didn't get their needs met.
So for me, it always comes down to, yes, you have state agencies and NEASC and all these things, people that want to come in and evaluate and assess us. But where the rubber meets the road for me is, are kids prepared to access whatever opportunities are available in this world when they leave us? And not all kids are. And the things that we're doing are focused on increasing the instructional minute and supporting, programs that would allow our kids to be successful and be able to compete and thrive in the world when they leave Newmarket Public Schools. And if we don't get our NEAS to be what it is, fine. It is not going to influence or distract us from the work that needs to be done, because the high school is important. But if the kids don't come out of that elementary school with the competencies necessary to succeed when they get up there, then the dog is wagging the cat, the tail is wagging the dog. And so we can't look at it like just doing this versus doing that. We have to look at it systemically, as Deb said, and we have to put programming in systemically. And we will methodically go through one thing at a time, and we will get ourselves there. What we need is dialogue like this. We present the information to you to understand the urgency, and that you can help in whatever ways the board can to support the work we're doing. And so together we'll get there. Together we'll get there.
Can I ask two questions real quick? A little bit unrelated. The two teachers that are getting help with the NEASC, are they being compensated in any way?
That has not been the way that has been handled historically here.
Okay. They just use their planning time? Do they just use their planning time for it, or?
One of the professional responsibility, leadership and growth.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other one, this is a little bit unrelated, but the curriculum for social studies, do they use the Common Core?
College and career readiness standards.
They do,
Which are
okay.
connected to that.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay.
Gary, can we move on to the next item?
Yeah, certainly.
The next question that you had was a request that the administration provide information on 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade students leaving or applying to other schools over the past 6 years.
So I said 8th or 9th, and if time permitted, the following years, and for the past 5 years. But yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, Deb pointed out that a handful of people leaving can have a huge impact on the grades. So I was wondering, and I've heard anecdotally that there's a large number of kids from these 8th grade leaving this year. So I'm just wondering if historically what that number is, and if it's a large spike this year, if we have any idea why, if we need to be concerned.
It's just not an area that we can focus on right now.
I'm gonna jump in just because I saw it, so I did a quick. I went on to the website, to the school board budget, and on the second page is the overall student population enrollment stats for the last, since FY fiscal year 15. So I don't know if this is what we're looking for, or if we're looking for deeper data.
No, I'd heard there was some people leaving. I assume the guidance counselor had received applications for, or requests for information for applications to other school, and might be able to just, in their computer, say, I've gotten 6 kids this year who have asked about transcripts or whatever, and last year 2, and the year before it was 2. So 6 is a big number compared to 2, that sort of thing. I'm not looking for some kind of.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you. I'm worried about privacy. I don't know.
I'm not asking for their names. Just
Well,
the number of students.
Are you looking for like 4 are going to Phillips Exeter, or
No.
3 are going to St. Thomas, or what
No,
are we
I'm
looking for?
Last year, from 8th to 9th grade, 3 kids requested or transferred to a different school. The year before, it was 6, and this year it's 15, or this year it's 2, just to see if there's a trend, if there's an issue, something we need to be concerned with, that's all.
Gary, a couple of thoughts that I had with it. One, I'm not sure that the data is as easy to access as we might think it should be. And 2, I'm concerned, we talked a minute ago about the amount that people have on them at this point. And I'm not sure that now would be the time to add another item to someone's to-do list.
I have to agree with Kimberly. I don't see the time. That would take.
Well, have we asked the person if they have time and how long it would take? I mean, we're assuming, you said that you heard 60% or 60 kids used to leave or something at a meeting a few meetings ago?
When in the class of Colin's class, 2014, when the kids were going to 8th grade, when we didn't have a superintendent, when things were haywire,
Yeah.
didn't know what was happening, 60% of that class.
Well, I'm
went
looking
to
at,
other schools.
Elizabeth,
See, that's amazing.
what is this? I'm looking at the budget from last year that was presented to you all in October, that gave you all the student population and the enrollment for the last few years. I'm seeing, if we're looking at 8th grade over the last, are we looking at from people going into 8th grade to 9th grade over the last 10 years?
Yeah.
I mean, you saw in 15, there was 68, 69, 65, 65, 85, 61. Are we, I guess I'm worried that we could be breaching some confidentiality, and I don't know if this is a non-public thing. Is that something that we want people to know? I mean, if we're looking to find out
If the board as a whole is not interested in it, that's fine, I'll defer.
That was going to be my next thing. I think we need to decide collectively as a group of 5 how we're going to suggest to direct the administrative team. And I guess Gary's just asked. Yes, Andrew.
I'm sorry, no, I didn't mean to interrupt. That was purely my fault, please.
No, go ahead.
I guess, I'm not quite sure even, I definitely see where Gary's coming with
Right.
this. And I think it'd definitely be an interesting number to see. I'm not quite sure the number we would get right now would be accurate. Because I think a couple things are going on. I think people are looking at what's gonna happen next year, seeing that private schools have been open a lot more, and that's because they have resources that we don't have.
Right.
They also think that people are also seeing what's gonna happen with the voucher bill in, state,
Yep.
the State House.
Yeah, and it could be, and it it may be average, it may be nothing concern at all. But
I
if the
think,
board's not interested, then.
I think a much better number would be a number we see in the fall of kids that were 8th graders that became 9th grade, or 8th graders became 9th graders. I think it'd be a much more accurate number.
The problem is we don't know if some of those people left because they moved or left
So
because.
I guess
but
the best thing to do at this point would
spent
They
more
won the
time than
lottery,
I
could afford it.
should
had
be to
expected.
determine, you know, if this is something that we want the administration to pursue. And if so, then that would be one thing. So I think that I would entertain a motion to request the administration provide this data that Gary has requested.
I don't think it needs to be that formal. I mean, if it's pretty clear that I'm the minority, so that's fine.
So we'll
I'm not
just
gonna make a
table that,
big issue
Gary?
of it.
And
Well, we
just-
can, I mean, we have to table.
We'll
we
just
can
remove that
it.
request.
Yeah?
Okay. And then the next one is for the school board to conduct an end-of-year culture and climate survey.
Yeah, so I'm just concerned that we're going through another year and we're missing out on a potential data points so we can understand where our school is, has been, and is going. And I know last year we didn't do a survey. I'm thinking this year we should really consider doing some sort of survey so we can understand.
So last year we didn't do it because COVID.
Oh, yeah,
And so
which made
this year,
perfect sense.
COVID. So I get where you're going with this, and I think that, again, it's a time suck for our staff. They don't have the bandwidth, what you're asking for. And I know you're going to, I know, and that's fine. I am telling you from being in a building, Andrew can tell you, we don't have it. If you ask me right now, do I love my job? No. Am I gonna say, is it the administration? There's nobody. It's miserable right now. And I just don't think this is the year either to try it. And that's the only reason I'm saying, not this year.
I
Because-
was recommending the board do it, not the staff, so.
The board do it?
Well, the board could get a survey together, provide the list and contact, or provide the questions, it gets plugged into SurveyMonkey or whatever application we use, and it gets sent out. Or there's also the U.S. Department of Education has a free culture and climate survey. So I certainly wasn't looking to put more work on the
Well,
stuff.
that would only, you'd ask questions about our employee. But is that what you're looking for? Because you can't, they're not our employees, we have one employee. So are you asking the staff?
I guess other districts send out surveys, so I don't know, I didn't realize that wasn't something we were allowed to do.
I'm kind of new to this, so I'm learning culture and climate surveys, so teach me kind of what you're thinking. Are you thinking a survey to every employee in the Newmarket district to kind of see where they're at, if they're good, happy, they have any
No, I think as I
issues?
understand that it's more like, and these can be, the U.S. Department of Education, I think it includes students. I don't know if it includes the parents or not, staff, to see what if they have felt bullied, to see how they think teaching's going, see how they think, if it's a good learning environment, things to ascertain that kind of thing.
Okay.
And I'm not probably the best person to articulate what a culture and climate survey
When
is.
you brought it up, you have to be.
No, I just know the culture and climate of a building, and certainly of my workplace is important, and.
Certain mine as well, absolutely. So I'm wondering, you know, if we wanted to do something like that, I don't know if there's templates out there that,
Well, yeah, I mean,
if
they
there's
have a
certain
free
questions
system
that-
you can use,
Is
actually.
there questions that, I want to make sure if we're gonna, you know, survey, well, there's 200 people, employees in the district. So it's hard to gauge a percentage. If we could guarantee that all 200 sat down individually and we were sure that they were answering the questions truthfully and honestly, because you know as well as I do.
I think with any survey, there's data points you throw out. Because there's some people are gonna say, there was a rainbow outside my window every single day I went to
Right.
work. And there's some people who are gonna say, there was the opposite outside my window every day. So I think you throw out those data points.
I mean, I guess it comes down to the same thing as the last one. Is this what the 4 to 5 wants us to do? And what's the goal of this? And what's those types, that's my question. Like, what is the intention of gathering this data? What is the intent?
Because I think it'd be useful for the board and the district to long-term to be able to say, kids have felt bullied or felt accepted, and it's improved or not improved. And if we see trend lines, we can discuss them and work on ways to correct them.
Do you think that we have a bullying problem?
I'm just, is a hypothetical example. It may be, I don't know, people's inclusivity has been really good and started to decrease in the next 3 years. And to be able to do that, you need to have a starting point.
Well, and we know, the not homeschooling, remote learning, and the inequities that whole problem last spring really brought a light to, and the isolation that those kids felt. It was apparent and heartbreaking, and I don't know if we're too emotionally attached to that COVID and remote learning that we would get an accurate, if we would get an accurate.
Yeah, I don't really know if you can be able to say anything's accurate. You have to look at a trend line, right?
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Were you hoping to do that this year?
Well, I was hoping the board would entertain looking into it and see if it was plausible to do it this year, sure.
Yeah.
Or if not, start planning earlier for next year so that we can get some kind of data points to be able to say, this is where the district's doing good, this is where we need to improve.
Yeah.
It's so hard when it's, education is emotional and it's families, and, you take a survey today and everything's wonderful, and tomorrow you take the survey and you're in a horrible mood, or you just got written up, or you got a raise or something, and I don't know how to survey students, parents, and the staff. I want to do some more research, I think, and learn what the Department of Education surveys have. I'd love to look at some
You should look
templates.
at it, it's very interesting.
I'd love to look at some templates and how, if we've got 200 employees, what are we looking for? What is the requirement? Is it we need to have an 80% return rate, or the data's not viable? Students, if we have, what was let me check my budget numbers, but right now it looks like our overall student population at 1,041. How many students would we have to, get in order for that data to be viable? It has to be more than however many.
We could probably throw out the pre-K through 2.
Damn, I
Or
hate you.
3.
So wouldn't we
or
and we'd
4.
also have to talk to Barrett and see if this is even in our
Sure, it's a great point.
wheelhouse.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Before you spend time and energy on that, you should,
I mean, I don't mind spending the time and energy. I didn't.
well, you
get
need to find out from
elected
Barrett if it's
to
even
just
something.
not do anything.
Well,
You know,
you need to find out from Barrett if it's something that's even
But
part
yeah,
of your
I don't
board
know
me-
as far as unions go, what our, I just want to make sure that the board, I'm not overstepping my reach.
Right.
There's some privacy issues and there's some
Absolutely,
union
sure.
things. I don't feel comfortable as a board member getting into the minutia of kids and family choices. That's just a
Yeah.
sticking point for me in a privacy overall concern. But I think just like anyone else, we all want to know that the school's doing well and that the teachers are enjoying the working environment and the kids are learning. And I think that bringing in these highly qualified educators and getting the building going, and now getting ourselves out of COVID and working on new classes for kids and new math curriculums, I'm feeling good about that, kind of where we're headed. But I think that we're going to have that conversation. And maybe it's in the fall, maybe we start putting our thinking caps on and say, okay, where are we going? What is our strategy? And is that even something in our wheelhouse that we want to, know?
Or is it in our wheelhouse, is it in our lane, is it appropriate for us to interact with the employees in that way? Do they trust us enough to give us positive, any data at all?
I think
Because
they're
I'm
all
not
done
sure some of them
anonymously,
do.
but we'd have to check on that.
So, my question again is this something that we as a board of 5 want to pursue? So
I'm sorry, so at each district I've been at, I've gone through something similar to this. And sometimes it's a complete waste of time. The last one I went through, there were the most random questions that I did not identify the stuff that I want to talk about as an employee. I also did one though with the county I was at before that, and it was really good in the fact that they were identifying where the areas of teachers were frustrated, and they knew that one area they were frustrated was the salary, and that led to them focusing on the budget to write the salary that way. So I think there definitely is value in doing surveys. Now, I only need to figure out the climate, but also what we as a board need to focus on when it comes to spending and things like that. But my concern is rushing it, so it's a waste of time. I think a very interesting thing would do one at the beginning of the year and when doing one at the end of the year, so you have something to say, like what we're working towards. I would personally, I think a quality survey would be good for us to talk about at the end of the summer, so it's ready to be implemented and we know exactly what we want. I would even wonder if this is something that like UNH or SNU would be interested in doing in their education department. But I'm really concerned about us getting information that isn't a positive building, if that makes sense.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
That I guess that we're not gaining constructive information for us to build off of.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's a concern too.
And I'm not sure, again, I'm not sure this is good anytime, but I'm especially not sure this is good right now because everybody, the parents, the students, everybody, and not to mention the educators, are beyond their, I want 19 days to be over. So, I don't know. And I will say, Andrew, just sort of some background. When Susan before she came, she did a survey of the employees.
Yeah, she was nice enough to share it with me.
That was very helpful and gave us a lot of data that allowed us to shape our work. But that came from her to her future staff. They were concerned even with that. And my concern is that we get outside of our lane into lanes that are not appropriate, that we waste people's time because that's not appropriate either to my way of thinking because people don't have a lot of spare time.
Yeah.
Staff, anybody. And then, let's say we did do a survey in the fall and people say they want us to stop the math program that we just implemented because they don't determine that that's necessary or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then we don't follow through with that because it does not make sense to do that because the reasons why we implemented the thing in the spring are still valid, then we have another problem. So I don't know. We just we sort of paint ourselves into a corner in a way, I think.
Yeah.
So just my thoughts. So I guess the question is, one, if this is something we want to pursue, and I would probably seek a motion to determine that, and then we can vote on it and see what happens from that.
Can I tell you, I'm a little bit uncomfortable voting on something like this, not quite sure. Like, is it we're gonna do a survey, or is this gonna be something like that? Our goal is, let's talk about this in like beginning of August when people have recuperated a little bit and we have a better idea exactly what we want to accomplish with this.
I mean, my initial thought would be up or down, is this something we're going to pursue in the future, yes or no? And then if it passes, then it would become a question of when does that pursuit happen or what does it look like?
And what does it look like? And you'd have to talk to Barrett.
And what,
Well, and I think you bring up a lot of good points. I mean, are we even allowed to do it? So
yeah.
And, do we want to kind of get a idea of where we're at? But, one of the things that Susan said a little while ago that made my, heart stop was, what does school look like in September?
Yes.
And holy moly.
Yep.
I mean, the 6 of us, maybe in September, just trying to hold everyone up and get the building open. And I don't know what our focus will be mentally at that point. A lot of that's going to have to do with what the state of New Hampshire guidelines require us for, any any sort of COVID issues going forward, and who knows what's gonna happen.
That
I'm
could
open to
change
looking at it.
daily.
I don't know how or when.
Another point that I forgot to bring is that I would not feel comfortable us doing this without input from the administrative team as well, because I think that would be inappropriate for us
We
to
didn't
do
even
that.
talk to Susan about it.
So that, I should have said that before, but that's just my thoughts on that.
Can we define this vote as, that this is a topic that we discussed during a, retreat in the fall?
Yeah, I don't even know if we need to do that. Can't we just table it? I mean, motion to table it and discuss it again in the fall? I mean, rather than voting for,
Table it.
So there's a motion to table it. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor of tabling it, say aye.
Aye.
It's tabled.
Okay.
And then I also, just to stick up for our staff again, want everybody to remember, school ended in June last year or May. I think it was May that it ended. We didn't stop working. Our staff didn't start working. We hit the ground running, getting ready for September. And that was multiple
Before
meetings.
school ended.
Yes, we were multiple meetings, July and August. So when I say it's 9 weeks, I guarantee you staff is thinking 9 weeks, but that, just even when Gary said, well, maybe we can, or one of you said, maybe we could do it at the end of July. I can't even, my brain can't even grasp that. Like, I can't. I think we just need to let our staff decompress, hope to God that they all want to start learning this math program, and just see what everything happens in September, how this all looks in September. So yes, let's table it. Everybody take a deep breath.
The next thing, Gary, you'd ask about intramural stuff. Susan put in a thing into the board packet about that. Susan, do you have anything you want to add on the intramurals? Okay. Gary, any questions?
just for the public, we just weren't able to offer it due to logistical challenges that may compromise varsity sports.
Okay. The next thing that we had on the agenda was Amy Tilton had requested to come to talk about graduation activities and events, and sadly she could not make it this evening. She is not. She could not make it. All right. We'll move on to the action items that we've already addressed some of, but we'll keep going. The first one is the approval of the manifests.
Sorry.
No problem, Andrew.
It's the bottom number, correct?
Yes.
I seek a motion to approve a manifest of $603,738.82.
I'll second that.
I have a motion from Mr. Hemaker with a second from Ms. McKenney for the manifest. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Just a note on the, and this is for Gary, Elizabeth, and I to vote on because you guys were not elected to the board yet.
Yeah.
The admin team asked Sarah to update those minutes from March 4th. We did a lot of policies, and there were some policies that we modified some, and so they wanted more detailed notes in terms of what was happening with the specific policies.
Can we do that? Because we already approved these on the,
We're approving the amendment.
So you need a motion to approve the amendments?
I
Yes.
didn't think you'd do that, okay.
Yes.
Which was,
What happened was.
What
this
specifically-
listing did not reflect the action that was taken on each item. All the minutes said was that the board moved, but it didn't say, for example, on each policy. It
so
did
that's
on-
F.
Like, if you read the minutes on the first one, on the first reading, the minutes there said specifically, this one's withdrawn, this one's modified, this one's, no action taken. But when the minutes were prepared for this one, it didn't reflect the actual action on the various ones. It just moved it as a whole. But there was no description of what was occurring. So that's the difference.
If you look at G there, Gary, it gives more detail about the,
Oh, I see.
not the substitute teacher stuff, no changes, that type of thing.
Gotcha.
All right, so we have what's it called? Motion from Ms. McKinney. We need a second.
Second.
Second from Gary. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That's a 3-0, Sarah, since it's, and the next one's for the April, I seek a motion to approve the April 20th, 2021 public and non-public minutes.
I make a motion.
We need a second.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Mr. Ant with a second from Mr. Hemaker. Yes, Andrew, any changes?
Can I ask real quick? My name is misspelled in there. I don't care. I haven't called a lot worse and spelled a lot worse. But if it's a legal document, I don't know if it's a big deal.
Too late, that's your new name. Congratulations.
So we'll approve them with the amendment of Mr. Hemaker's name.
Yeah, it's in Roman numeral 2, A.
Any other amendments?
It's in the present as well.
Yes. No, that one's right.
It is?
No, I'm looking at the 15th. What am I looking at?
Yeah,
Oh,
21st.
I'm looking at the 21st.
In the present, people present on the 21st. It's spelled the same way.
Oh, wait.
No, it is, wait a
No,
minute.
it's-
No,
it's
it's right.
correct.
Oh, I'm sorry, it is a little E. Yep, you're right. You do know how to spell your name. You're right.
No.
Any more amendments? Hearing none, we will, I seek a vote to approve the motions as amended. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. And Susan, the next one is you to inform the school board of the federal funds the district will be receiving.
Yes, so apparently in New Hampshire, you have to say this out loud, so I'm gonna read what I
Yes.
need to say to make sure that it's in the minutes specifically as required. That the state of New Hampshire has a requirement that the superintendent must inform the board of federal funds that the school district receives. So we have talked about these grants multiple times. I wish to formally remind you that the Newmarket School District, SAU 31, receives the following federal grants: Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, IDEA preschool, and we call it the CARES Act and the URSA Act. Those are the federal ones for COVID that we're receiving now. So that's CRRSA-ESSER Roman numeral 2.
So I'm assuming if it's under action item, you need a motion to accept the federal funding's memorandum. Acknowledgement.
Yeah, acknowledge it.
Which I so move.
Need a second for that motion?
I will second that.
We have a motion from Mr. Swanson with a second from Mr. Durant to
Fancy.
accept the federal funds.
Fancy.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The next thing, we accepted the job share for the 4th grade for next year earlier in the meeting. The next item is the.
Can I just also remind everybody that this would be the last year we would be recommending this?
Yes. Susan, can you give us
Isn't
the
it the
details?
board's prerogative to decide whether or not to do it? Is that the,
I'm saying recommending.
oh, I see.
Susan, would you like to talk about the keyboard?
And they're aware of that. I think that's why you saw so many people here tonight.
Oh, I see.
The keyboard for the elementary school?
Yes, so this gentleman was moving out of town and contacted the elementary school to say that he had a Yamaha E403 electronic keyboard with a soft case and a working microphone stand that he wished to donate to the elementary school. And so that's what's here before you. It's estimated to be a value of about $300.
I make a motion, we accept the generous donation from Mr. Stiffel for the keyboard and microphone stand.
I second.
We have a motion from Mr. Swanson, a second from Mr. Rant,
And I hope I pronounced
to
it right.
accept the Yamaha keyboard for the elementary school.
So cool.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Stiefel, for doing that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's accepted. Next thing, Susan, is the nomination of the coaches.
Yes, so before you tonight is a recommendation to approve Courtney Fowler, the junior varsity softball coach, and Brian Cronin, the varsity boys basketball coach for next year.
Seek a motion to approve those nominations.
I approve both of those nominations.
I'll second that
We have a
motion.
motion from Ms. McKinney with a second from Mr. Swanson to approve the 2 coaches listed and Sue's just noted. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Coaches accepted. Retirees and resignations.
Yeah, so we had 6 resignations since our last meeting about a month ago. And then we had 1 retirement. So Eric Anderson the junior senior high school library media specialist, Luis Beal. I believe Eric was with us. This is his 6th year this year. Luis Beal was just a new addition this year. Nate Doust, he's been on leave this year and will not be returning. Paul Henderson, the junior senior high school social studies teacher, Delaney Rosenberg, the junior senior high school English language arts teacher, and as mentioned earlier, Devin Lockley, our director of facilities. And we were notified, I think it was last week, that Lisa Cole, a longtime reading tutor here at the elementary school, will be retiring at the end of this year. So, we, are very grateful for all the service that these people have provided for our kiddos here in Newmarket. And we wish them all the best in, the next chapter in their life, so.
I make a motion, we reluctantly accept the retirements and resignations of those presented tonight.
We want to thank everyone for the dedication to the district and to our students. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to the vote. All those in favor of sadly, reluctantly accepting these resignations and retirements, say aye.
Aye.
And the last thing is a hiring update.
Yes, so in your packet, you received, an update. Anyone in red were new additions since the last time you received this document from us. So the next time, these folks will be in black, and anybody new would be in red, just for the new folks, so you understand why some are in red and some are in black. So we have done a lot of hiring, and we're in the middle, as I said earlier, of reviewing applications and interviewing and reference checking and all of that. We have secured a good portion of the professional staff that will be leaving our employ. And I'd like to start off first with, actually, I don't have her first. I will start with, I guess these are in alphabetical order. Catherine Bazel. She is coming to us as an 8th grade social studies teacher, replacing Paul Henderson. She has 3 years of social studies teaching experience at the 7th and 8th grade level. She's also taught at the high school level, and she's also taught 6th grade. She's been a long-term sub in both history and special education. She was interviewed by Ms. DeStefano, Mr. Levitt, and Mr. Dalton, and came with impeccable references. She has a bachelor's degree in social studies from Plymouth State University, and she is a certified social studies teacher, grades 5 through 12. And her passion is 8th grade social studies. So having taught many different levels of social studies, that's like, as she said, that's her jam. And she is excited to be joining us, and we are excited to have her coming on board. She's coming from SAU 44, the Stratford School. Next is Tiffany Brand, and she is going to be our computer science teacher next year. Tiffany comes to us with a master's degree in secondary education, a bachelor's degree in zoology, both from UNH. She holds New Hampshire certification as digital literacy specialist, also a middle school science and high school life science. She has 18 years of experience, a whole range of experience, both in teaching from the elementary level all the way up, pretty much at all grade levels. She's been a computer science teacher, a technology coordinator, and she has taught just about every class you can imagine related to computer science. And so we're absolutely thrilled to be getting her. It's a very difficult position to fill We struggled to fill it last year. We had a candidate who had to drop out a week before school started, and we filled it with a long-term sub. So we're absolutely thrilled to have her joining our staff next year, very experienced teacher. For music, replacing Elizabeth Miller is Brett Brasco, and he's coming to us with a master's degree in secondary education, a bachelor's degree in music, and a minor in French. He is a certified music teacher, and he has 5 years of experience under his belt. He's taught at the elementary level, and he's taught at the middle school, but his passion is high school. And so he's not unhappy where he's at. He's just trying to find the right fit for his interests and passion. He came very highly recommended from the building principal and his colleagues. He was interviewed by Mr. Dalton, Ms. Blake, and Ms. Tessier, who was added as our music and band teacher last year. Next, Christina Boisvert has been on and off with Newmarket. She was long-term sub for the computer science teacher the year before because we couldn't fill the position. Last year we had budgeted for a .5 art teacher at the middle school level, and then because of COVID and having to reduce class sizes, we increased her to full-time. We added the position to full-time this year based on interest in our arts programs. And so she's now going to be appointed full-time officially, not temporarily, to be a middle school art teacher.
That's
so
great.
We're thrilled to have her joining us full-time. And then Margaret Fail is how you pronounce it. I had to ask her. I made my best effort to pronounce her last name, and she said, no, it's actually pronounced Fail. So Margaret, again, is a very experienced educator, very student-centered in her approaches. She has a bachelor's degree and 2 master's degree from the University of New Hampshire. She has a master's degree in elementary education and early childhood and special education, which is really awesome because this program, as you know from Erica's presentation, kind of you want to have somebody with dual certification, regular education as well as special education, and she comes with that. Ms. Clossy was part of the interview process along with Ms. McNeil, Ms. Cochran, Ms. McCann, and Ms. McKenna. And they were all super excited. I had a wonderful conversation with her. She's going to be a wonderful addition and complement to Ms. Clossy in our preschool program. Anne Marie Metzler is replacing Pat Yeager, Ms. Yeager, who's retiring this year. And again, she's actually coming to us from California. Last year we had another teacher that came to us from California, but not in similar locations. Again, she is a very accomplished teacher, has a background in co-teaching and inclusion. She's got a master's degree from San Francisco State University in special education and a bachelor's degree in history and educational studies. She is in the process of receiving her certification. It's a non-issue. She had to apply, but she couldn't until she received a position. So we should have her letter of certification shortly. I did speak to the state, and there's no problem there.
Right. There is usually.
So in terms of experience, she is an educational specialist with 6 years of experience in her current position at the high school. She's co-taught biology, world history, algebra, and astrophysics. Wow. Yeah, she has taught the gamut. She's also, taught, separate classrooms, and has a whole host of experience that we're thrilled that she's bringing to us. She has taught in special education, inclusion models, co-teaching models, and she's just going to be a wonderful addition to our junior senior high school. So we're thrilled to have her come on board. James Marsh was the long-term sub for computer science.
I was just gonna say, I know that name.
His certification is in social studies, and he has been under the tutelage of Stephanie Cleary, who is our math coordinator. She's very accomplished teacher to be working under. She's very into interdisciplinary project-based learning experiences for kids. And I've observed his class multiple times this year, and we're super excited to have him joining us on a full-time basis. So he is taking Doug Webb's place as the 6th grade social studies teacher. Next, replacing Ms. Bowen as our sophomore English teacher is Caitlin Schaus. She is, again, another person we're very excited about. She's in the process of getting her CAGS at Southern New Hampshire University. She has a master's degree in education and a bachelor's degree in English, both from UNH. She is a certified teacher with 6 years of experience teaching, coming from Somersworth High School. And so we're thrilled to have her join us. She was interviewed by Mr. Dalton, Ms. DeStefano, Ms. Rosenberg, and Ms. St. James. Next is Amy Beth Taylor. She will be replacing Delaney Rosenberg, high school English teacher. Delaney is also our English language arts coordinator at the secondary level. Big loss. Delaney does everything. She's involved in everything. So big loss. But we have Ann Beth Taylor, who is also very accomplished, and we're excited to have her join us. She is certified in English. She's coming to us with 11 years of experience. She's taught in 3 different states. She has taught 8th grade. She's taught at the high school level for many, many years. She has been an advisory instructor, a humanities department chair. She was Common Planning Time teacher leader. She was the NEASC Standards 2 facilitator last year in the school district she was in. And she's done a lot of work in providing professional development on project-based learning in summer institutes. She's very accomplished. We're super excited to have her joining us as well. So those are the hires that we've been able to make since we last met. And as I said, we couldn't be happier with, as sad as we are to have people leave, we're very excited to be able to welcome such an accomplished group of educators to our community. That's it.
I seek a motion to accept the nominations that Susan has listed for us tonight.
So moved.
I need a second.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Ms. Kenny, a second from Mr. Hemaker to accept the nominations that Susan just listed. Susan, thank you for, hitting it head on with the hiring process. We know the time is hot now, so thank you for that. We'll move to the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Approved. All right, a couple things before we adjourn. I just want to go through some dates, and I'll send this out in an email, but I wanted to share it right now with you guys. There's going to be a combined school board building committee meeting on Tuesday, June 1st at 5 p.m. If you can't come, just let me know, but that would be great if you could. Then our next school board meeting is Thursday, June 3rd at 5 p.m. Actually, we're going to meet at 4 p.m. And I'll give you more details about what will happen. We're going to be at 4 instead of 5. Then we have our next session of our retreat on Saturday, June 5th at 9 o'clock. We still don't have a location. I will let you know that as soon as I do. And then I wanted to give some sort of ideas for the summer so you guys can plan. Right now, we will definitely have a meeting on July 8th and August 19th.
Why July 8th?
Because it's the week.
No,
It's
I'm
the
serious, like,
Thursday.
I'm thinking like for admin, for everybody.
Jana needs the board.
Gotcha,
Yep, that's why.
all right.
And then August 19th will be the first one to get back. We'll keep a placeholder on August the 5th in case we need to have it, but those two would definitely be set in stone. So July 8th, for the reasons why Susan just described, and August 19th are definite. August 5th will be on a tentative date in case we need it.
But
You
this
guys-
is only if the board decides to adjourn for the summer.
Well, I think, given that we're going to be receiving CDC guidelines and things like that, you have an audit that you have to, Jana has to present some information to you,
Okay.
needs a vote from you, so you can't really recess for the summer entirely.
Is it fair to say that discussion about before and after school care is gonna be next meeting? With the opening, next year's opening committee that you have to present to the state, that has to be approved by us?
We don't have to present anything to the state that I'm aware of. They're just saying that we have to have one, and I have to put it on our website.
Okay.
All I was gonna do was just kind of polish up and everything that we've talked about.
Okay.
It's not like anything's changing from what we've said, and I was gonna make sure we reviewed it again formally, publicly. Do the same with staff, but I'm hoping, depending on how things go, that I could do that at the next meeting, but it's not gonna have anything to do with daycare.
Okay. Okay, awesome.
Any other questions?
I mean, I wouldn't be addressing that.
No, I just, with these dates and the idea of like when, like July 8th is the last one.
I mean, I'm just doing it to facilitate something that's not really in my purview to do,
Yeah.
so, you know, I wouldn't be committing,
No,
Yeah.
yeah,
that's like an Amy,
okay,
independent, private party
okay.
situation,
Okay.
yeah. I'm just saying that I'm happy to do as much as I can to help facilitate
Yeah,
anything I
no,
can.
I know, and with graduation right now is the goal, I just don't know exactly with the access to the buildings, exactly at what point, that needs to be
Yeah,
discussed.
from-
I don't think right now is the time to do it, I just,
Yeah,
with
I
the
don't
dates.
think, from what I was told yesterday by Dr. Chan, when this was specifically asked of him, that that is not a protocol that they feel would be relaxed next year.
okay.
This is hot off the press yesterday at the meeting, so, you know, things,
Okay.
that,
But Susan, you might be able to sort of marry up and.
yes, I already have. I've been facilitating that as soon as you made me aware that it was an issue,
Yeah.
so, and I'll continue to.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Hearing none, it is 8:16, I think, and I seek a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I make a motion?
Second.
I'll second it.
We have a motion from Ms. Durant with a second from Mr. Swanson to adjourn the meeting at 8:16. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.